My dad told me that I started my YouTube channel the summer before 3rd grade, which means I was 8 years old. I met Ryan Trahan.
We started walking around and it felt like we had been best friends forever.
He's currently blowing up on the internet. Super great guy. I know I made a lot of jokes about hating him and how he's not funny, but his channel is actually really funny and really great, whatever.
Oftentimes on the internet, negative things get traction. It's like this natural inclination. We want to consume negative content. Fuck you, dude.
The video sucks.
Shut up.
No, really shut up.
Mia Stammer commented.
Yeah. Haley.
What?
I have to show you something.
I literally roasted her. She has like a journal entry from the week after we started dating saying she was gonna marry me. And I felt the same way. We speed ran it.
They just bought a house together. A young couple that's been dating about a year, just bought a mansion together. Not relatable. No.
And it was all these new projects and ventures and businesses happening kind of all at one time. And it felt like nothing, again, it felt like nothing was sticking.
I love this girl that I'm with. I have everything I've ever wanted. Why do I feel empty?
Ryan Trahan and Haley Pham need to press pause before they make an irreversible decision that could affect them for the rest of their lives.
Please don't hold us to some standard of perfection, because we're gonna fail you every time.
From making videos entirely for fun to finding their footing as internet celebrities, Ryan Trahan and his wife Haley Pham have had quite the journey on YouTube.com. So today we're going to yap about how they got their start, other fun things, how they met and fell in love, the leaps they've made in life together, and we'll also be touching on some of the controversies that they found themselves in along the way. If you do get sick of listening to the events in Haley and Ryan's lives, because this is quite a long video, I would encourage you to skip to the end of there will be chapters, but amongst all this, there is actually like a message, there's something that I wanted to say, something that encouraged me to research these two people for an ungodly amount of time. So if you want to hear that, again, you'll find it in the chapters. But anyway, we have no time to dilly-dally. Like I said, this video is probably going to be a million hours long, so let's just dive right into it, okay? Let's start learning this. Okay, get your textbooks out. We're studying today. And we start with Haley Pham. Now, Haley Pham became a working girl at a very young age. Not intentionally, she just kind of started making videos for fun when she was like 8, but her first YouTube video was uploaded in 2012. At that time, Haley was the ripe old age of 11 years old, so she was at double digits, definitely old enough to be posting unsupervised for the pleasure of internet strangers everywhere, but honestly, to be fair to barely conscious fetus Haley Pham, this tutorial of like, she was teaching us how to like put on lipstick, you know what, it was actually very helpful and it was much more concise and descriptive than the average YouTube short nowadays.
Hi guys, so first start with clean lips, then we're going to moisturize our lips with our Nivea Milk and Honey chapstick. Just apply that to the lips.
Haley said about her first efforts on YouTube to Naluda magazine, she said one day she just picked up her dad's iPhone 3 and started recording her outfits, dance and makeup. And then she taught herself how to edit on the iMovie app. See, everyone starts somewhere. I mean, everyone, you've got to start somewhere. Is that what I don't know what I was trying to say there. But doing things young, you will see, definitely became a trend in Haley's life. Most of the videos that Haley uploaded between 2012 and like 2018-ish have been removed from public viewing though. Which honestly, I mean, can you blame her for wanting to forget about the way she acted when she was like 11 to 17? I can't. I mean, if I could have people's memories of me wiped up until the age of like 22, then I would do it. And I'm 22 now. I just feel there's not an awful lot worth remembering, you know. Sometimes the pain outweighs the gain. Like Haley, for example, for a while there was heavily into the shaving and waxing niche on YouTube. It's where she really got her big viral break. And so she would make videos about her trying out different methods of shaving her girly pop, she'd call it, I think. It's too soon in the video for me to say any of the appropriate words here, but basically what I'm saying is I think that it's reasonable to want the videos of you waxing your bikini line as a teenager to no longer be accessible online, so I'm glad that she's gone through and deleted some things.
Okay, finally got it off. That was so much. Oh my gosh. I put it in like the most dense area.
Oh yeah, when she's got that
Dense bush.
But despite Haley's efforts to erase this time period of her life from the internet, she clearly has not done as deep of a dive into her Instagram page as I have recently, because there is existing evidence that Haley was posting YouTube videos pretty seriously and consistently back then. I know, crazy, right? And it's all just sort of tucked away in the deep recesses of her Instagram page. But if you brush your fingers across the hay, that is baby photos and proclamations of her love for macarons and dance competitions, Christian celebrations, family photos, and funny stories like. So I was sitting in first period and I was leaning back in my chair. I was talking to Ariana at the same time, and then I fell backwards in the chair. I'd been holding my bladder for 1 hour. Ariana and I laughed so hard that I peed my pants a little. I had to wear my sweater around my waist for the next 2 blocks. So today, as an 8th grader, I peed my pants. If you brush your fingers along that hay, you will eventually find some needles in the hay. And these needles, so weird, these needles are Hailey sharing posts about old YouTube videos she'd been making, and they are not infected needles. I promise. Don't worry about your fingers. I just wanted to use some fun, imaginative language, and you're over here panicking about, oh, what if it's infected? No, it's fine. But these posts, they're posts like this. They're, asking her followers for video ideas or documenting her experience as a creator at VidCon as a 16-year-old around the same time that she took to Instagram to complain about homework, which is a bit trippy to look back on. It's weird to see that, but I feel like it was a very common dichotomy, especially back in the day. But honestly, Hailey was just like, she was the quintessential 2014 to 2016-ish beauty YouTuber. Partially because she was young enough to make you question, should you even be doing this? Like, are you okay? Do you have support? You know what I mean? I guess the children yearned for the Vines back then, which that doesn't really work on the topic of beauty YouTubers, does it? But now I want to use that line, and I'm not going to make a whole video about Vine just so that I can work that line in there. So, well, I don't think I'm going to make a whole video about Vine just so I can work that line in there. Basically what I'm trying to say though is that it was perfectly common back then for relatable young girls to become overwhelmingly popular on the internet for having a grasp on life and routines that even billionaires like Steve Jobs and Mark Cuban could never match. Like, they had things in order. These, 16-year-olds, they had everything going for them as far as their audiences were concerned. Like, they had a perfect attitude, the perfect room, a perfect family, a perfect life, okay? A lot of that could be credited to the fact that they were just always up to date with the trends of whatever time period they were in, whether it be, sparklers, mustaches, beaches every single night, messy buns, and Christmas lights. They welcomed trends with open arms, and they were absolutely relentlessly talented at making it seem like they literally lived their lives that way. Please tell me that someone is getting this reference. Please tell me you've got a song playing in your head right now, because I've really tried to emphasize. But anyway, to really highlight some of the ways that Hailey slotted perfectly into this niche of relatable but not really relatable beauty YouTubers, let me read to you her 2014 summer bucket list. Some of her goals are as follows. She wanted to hollow out a book, read all of John Green book, do some DIY room decor, do a Polaroid scavenger hunt, watch the sunrise, tie-dye a shirt, do a henna tattoo, go thrifting for a Polaroid, do a spa day, draw with chalk, and make friendship bracelets. And when I tell you that I thought I would never make a friend in my life, when I was 12, because all of this relatable routine beauty tuber stuff that people my age were into was torture to me. I'm telling the truth. I made it with my whole heart. I was like, if I don't like hollowing out books and doing DIY room decor, then how will anyone ever love me? I mean, I know everyone is different. Truly, power to the people that would find that list to be a blast of fun to check off, but to me, that list is just a blast from the past. It's like a nuclear explosion right in my face from the past. Makes me feel so lame. I'm getting out of these shoes. I don't want to be in these shoes anymore. We need to move on. This was all the sort of stuff that I'd planned to do back then, because I'd be like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'd never do it because it would sound so boring to me. Not that I did anything more interesting. Anyway, I do think that these things genuinely were interests that came naturally to Hailey, and I don't mean to knock that. And I can imagine that she was probably influenced by larger creators at the time that she was, making her 2014 summer bucket list. She just was interested in the trends. She actually gravitated towards these larger influences, their lifestyles, you know what I mean? But I also think that, her very average seeming life, coupled with her seemingly endlessly positive attitude, her pretty aesthetic, her dancer lifestyle, and her family-oriented, God-loving nature, and her young age. I feel like that all contributed in a way, that all served to allow Hailey to build an audience of fellow children. You know, she came to the platform and she said, how do you do, fellow kids? And I said, better now that you're here. And so around this point in Hailey's life and career at a very young age, it's kind of weird to say, but at this point she was cultivating a crowd of invested preteen viewers, most of whom could either relate to her lifestyle or aspire to have her lifestyle, like sort of idealize her lifestyle. I commented to Hailey's post about doing the cotton ball challenge, which by the way is still fun in 2025. I mean, not that I've tried it, but like I would, you know. I just poked myself in the eye and I tried to play it cool, but there's no playing it cool. My fingernail touched my eyeball. Anyway, a comment under that post perfectly encapsulates the way that Hailey's audience felt about her at the time, I think, and it read, love the video. And I just feel the need to share. Okay, so, kind of fun coincidence, my name is Michaela Pham. I'm half Vietnamese. I have blondish tips in my hair, I'm a dancer, and in company at my studio in Austin. Oh, and my mum knows Quentin. I don't know Quentin. I think I'm missing something. I love sushi. I'm 13 and in 8th grade. I'm short and I have a couple nicknames, but my longest one has been Freckles because I have freckles on my cheeks and people love them. I think we were sisters in a past life, even though we have never met and don't actually know each other. Hashtag twinning, hashtag sorta, hashtag stranger twinning, hashtag kinda weird. So you can probably infer from that there was quite a strong parasocial relationship brewing between Hailey and her viewers, and Hailey did facilitate it. And not to say that's a bad thing, it was just kind of what you did back then, especially when she was a teenage girl. And she probably did feel connected to her viewers in a way that could possibly be considered dangerous nowadays, but like that was her community, you know what I mean? She was building a community of like-minded young girls. And she didn't hold anything back. Like she even shared her mum's Instagram page with her viewers, and she said, if you want to see really ugly pictures of me that I don't approve of my mom posting, then go follow my mommy Pham. So basically, it seemed like nothing was off limits for Hailey Pham. She posted everything, her life, her friendships, her family, her personal thoughts and feelings. All of these things were content for Hailey from a very young age. She was like 11 when this all kicked off. It's just wild to think about. And scrolling through Hailey's Instagram account is crazy because you actually genuinely see her mature from ready to take on 7th grade in a huge new school, better take Jesus along the ride, to second dance competition vlog in a row. Vlogmas starts December 1st on my vlog channel. I'll be vlogging every day in December. That means 2.5 weeks of Vietnam vlogs, to cherry plus sun equals cowboy emoji. Isn't that crazy? This is only over the course of, well, I guess it is quite a few years, but like there's not much of a difference, and oh my god, it's just weird. It's also quite funny because you get to see like the photo quality and Hailey's aesthetic shift from, you know, like it's 2013, and this photo I snapped on my iPod while I was hanging out with my friend at the park is super cute, so I want to post it, to I literally only came here so I could have my photo taken in 4K. On my brand new iPhone 27. That's the change in vibe that it's giving. I am joking a little bit. Like, I don't know if Hailey does that thing where you literally go to a location, snap a couple photos, and you're like, okay, let's go home. But that's definitely the reality for some influencers, because I've literally seen them, like, they'll have a shooting day. They'll just hop in the car with a nice high quality camera and some poor camera person that they've dragged along with them, and they'll be like, that tree, let's stop in front of that tree and get some photos, and then they'll drive across town and it's a weird lifestyle. I mean, good for you if you do it, you know what I mean? But either way, while some things obviously have changed in Hailey's life, like I said, she was 11 when she started, there are some things that also didn't change that much along Hailey's ride through life. Her hair was not one of them. It's been through a couple phases. But Hailey being a devout Christian is one of those things. She clearly still aligns with the values that she held as a young person. And her interest in, you know, like trends and aesthetics also hasn't really waxed and waned. She's always been that kind of girl. Just something to keep in mind as we go through this journey. Like, there's never a point where she flip-flops to the other end of the spectrum and she goes from visco to, like, goth girl, you know what I mean? She's pretty consistent. But one thing that has changed in her life is quite significant. Just significant, like, significant other. Yeah, it's her relationship status. Yeah, that's changed. Well, my best assumption anyway is that when Hailey posted her very first video in 2012 at the age of 11, she was not married. But now she is. So that's changed, right? Because one day her life crossed and intertwined paths with Ryan Trahan. Ryan, enter stage left. Ryan, this is your cue. Don't miss it. Oh, there he is. Okay, let's introduce Ryan. So Ryan Trahan, I think I'm just going to start both of their life stories on the day that they first uploaded to YouTube. So Ryan was born a little later than Hailey was. Not in real life, just on YouTube. He was 16 when his channel began in 2015 with his PSA entitled Drink Water.
Hi, my name is Riverbanks, CEO of Water.
Oh wait, sorry, that's not Ryan. My bad. Well, I guess Ryan's first appearance on his YouTube channel was actually a few months later then with his rap song, A Day in Eagle Lake.
Chillin' in Eagle Lake. So much to do, so much at stake. So I head to B&B, pick up some TP. Kaden text me, get back here ASAP.
It's a song about buying toilet paper, I think. Don't look at me like that. I'd like to see you make sense of this, okay? I think he grew up in Eagle Lake, is my understanding, this small sort of place where there's not much to do, and he made a rap song about it because always look on the bright side of life. Either way though, in all seriousness, Ryan approached YouTube from a different angle than Hailey did when he first started. Well, I guess for one, Ryan Trahan has never been a beauty tuber. I'm not sure that was his thing, but Ryan seemed to have the sort of like old school-ish approach to YouTube that the likes of Smosh and Nega had back in the day. He just arrived a little later to the party than they did, obviously. He's like a decade younger than them, so I think we could give him a pass on that one. But basically, what it seems to me is that Ryan was sort of compelled to express himself creatively, and YouTube was just a good place for him to do that. Like, that's how his first videos come off. He had ideas, and he wanted to produce them in a reasonably high quality way considering his skill set at the time. So his channel, honestly, it really started off with a bang. And then he just started posting a bunch of running content. He was in the running niche. So he did, running vlogs, running runs, all that kind of running stuff that you do when you run. I don't know anything about running. I'm sorry. All I know is that I can't do it. But in amongst his running content, Ryan would occasionally upload a little outlier of a video. And one of those was entitled How to Use a Neptune Bottle, in which he teaches his viewers how to fill a water bottle. Thank goodness for the internet. Obviously this was a very different chapter in Ryan's life from the chapter he's in now. I'd say that this is before he found his thing. And I think that's what Ryan would say as well. Basically, Ryan Trahan has been open about the fact that he's always been an all-in kind of guy. He chooses to not follow the sound advice of not putting all your eggs in one basket, and he puts all his eggs in one basket without fail in everything he does, which I can't really judge him for, but really he's the type of person to like find something, he takes a thing and then he makes his whole life and identity revolve around that thing. And for a while, running was that thing for Ryan Trahan. And that worked for him in the sense that, obviously he was dedicated to the sport, he was good at it, and it fed into his competitive spirit. But what do you need in order to run well? No, other than legs. Yeah, sorry, that was the obvious answer, but that's not the one I was going for. You need hydration. You need to be hydrated, right? So some water might help. I'm trying to hint at something here. What I'm hinting at is that, well, wouldn't it make perfect sense for Ryan Trahan, a guy who's super into running and also enjoys, being entrepreneurial and innovative, does it make sense that he might start like a lightweight, temperature maintaining water bottle company? Maybe. Yeah, so this is where Neptune comes in. Ryan wasn't just teaching his viewers how to fill any old water bottle with coffee and ice water. No, he was teaching them how to fill his water bottle. It's different, okay? So that video, I bet that video is making more sense to you now. Basically what happened is Ryan came up with this idea and he started a Kickstarter to get it off the ground. He wanted to make, quote, a hydration vessel designed to defend our oceans by replacing single-use plastics one bottle at a time, which sounds perfectly unique and has definitely never been done before, I know. But listen, Ryan is equally as naturally awkward as he is naturally charming and naturally a good salesperson. So even though the idea of maybe stainless steel or whatever, a water bottle like that isn't entirely unique, he sold these bottles. His detailed Kickstarter page outlined the plastic problem, as he very smartly called it, alliteration. It just sticks in your head forever. And he detailed the ways in which his bottle would save the ocean. I mean, who wouldn't trust that face? Don't you just want to give that face all your money? So, because Ryan is like a magnet for money somehow, which he's proven in later videos, he ended up convincing 851 people to back his Kickstarter, with donations totaling $30,921. I was really disappointed that there's no 69 in that number because I can't even say that it's nice, but reasonably impressive for a high schooler, I guess. Isn't it funny that all of these people, these 851 backers, sort of unknowingly entrusted their money to some random 16-year-old kid. Luckily for them though, this 16-year-old kid was true to his word. So Ryan used all of these funds that people sent him to have a couple hundred water bottles produced by his manufacturers, which he then went on to sell to fellow students at his small little Eagle Lake High School. But like I just said, his school was small. That pool dried up eventually, and honestly quite quickly, I'm sure. So Ryan thought, where could I turn to sell the rest of the Neptune bottles I have? He didn't sell all of them at his school. And what crossed his mind? Oh, maybe I could use a free marketing source. Like, YouTube, methinks? Yeah. So Ryan Trahan started his YouTube channel to sell water bottles. Or sorry, hydration vessels he was selling. But no, he's come a long way since then, hasn't he? Things have changed. But the reason things sort of changed is because, like I said, Ryan had the tendency to really invest himself into everything he was doing. And so he really took to YouTube. And he sort of realized over time that YouTube was becoming his thing. It was taking precedent over school, which he was always really good in school. It was taking precedent over that, precedent over running, precedent over pretty much everything else. He was still repping the Neptune, but other than that, YouTube was his one. Still, after graduating high school with a valedictorian speech riddled with funny quips and an inspirational story about chickens and eagles and how an eagle lived its life as a chicken and it saw an eagle and all the other chickens said you'll never be like that eagle, but the eagle felt like he shouldn't be a chicken and he should be an eagle, but then he died a chicken because he never, after that, Ryan attended college on a D1 scholarship where he continued to run, he continued to sell water bottles, and he continued to make YouTube videos about running and selling water bottles. And he even made what would turn out to be sort of the first inkling of his later very popular penny series, which was a series entitled Turning 1 Cent into $1,000, which honestly are pitiful numbers compared to future years. Ryan was totally thinking like a chicken back then when he should have been an eagle, but he did all of this stuff, right? This water bottle YouTube running while he was still in school. I feel like he was living two lives, and so did he, to be fair. He said that, even he was a great student, but he was absolutely flunking out of college because he was totally caught up with the dreams that he had for his life, and his studies just weren't aligning with his visions. It was kind of like, why am I wasting my time on this, is what it felt like. Because Ryan wanted to be an entrepreneur. He didn't want to have a ceiling on his earnings. He didn't have the desire to work underneath a boss doing something that he wasn't passionate about, and so his studies fell to the wayside. They weren't helping him. I just thought I'd mention that because, sometimes I sit back and I think, genuinely, how do people have time for all of these things that they're doing? They are doing so many things. And then, you hear stories like that and you realize it really is all just about your priorities. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, right? Obviously, if you've got like kids and family, your time can get eaten up. But in the end, you prioritize your family, and that's why. Anyway, it also depends on what you show people as well. Like on the surface, Ryan had it all together. You wouldn't think otherwise. But then when you dig a little deeper, there was some uncertainty and there was some exhaustion in Ryan's life, but still he was determined to stick it out. He was figuring life out one step at a time, but he was just going to keep trucking along until he ran into some bad news, or at least he said what he would consider to be bad news. And honestly, I think anyone would be a little troubled by this, but basically Ryan was involved with the NCAA, that's the National Collegiate Athletic Association, and they decided that Ryan, in posting YouTube videos using his name, his image, and his likeness as an athlete to promote his hydration vessels, he was not complying with NCAA rules. So Ryan promoting his company was clashing with him documenting his experience as a college athlete. And so he was pretty much being forced to pick between ceasing to speak about his pride and joy Neptune on his social media pages, or ceasing to speak about his identity, which was running at the time, on his social media pages. So to abide by the NCAA restrictions, he was either going to have to publicly dissociate from his company or from his college running experience. And that made Ryan feel like an out-of-whack compass. He didn't know which direction he was facing in life anymore. It threw him for a loop. And there was a big issue with all of these restrictions that the NCAA was trying to place on Ryan, in the sense that he didn't want to comply. He didn't want to compromise. He wanted his cake and he wanted to eat it too. I get it. Like, he didn't want to be punished for chasing his dreams. He didn't want to erase half of the goals he had for his life at the time because the NCAA determined that there was only space in his life for this thing or that thing. And so Ryan instead chose to drop out of college. I guess this whole situation just made things really clear to him, and he was like, if I'm not willing to let go of either of these things, but I am willing to let go of college, then what does that say? And basically what he shared with his viewers was he said that deep down, he knew that he was going to be successful at whatever he chose to do. He was determined. He was going to make it work. And so he chose to divert from the beaten path and carve out his own. As he said, happiness is the only thing that matters in this world. And so Ryan was prepared to do whatever it took to climb to the peak of happiness.
I've been in some pretty dark places in my life, and these past 4 months I just haven't been happy. And you should not be doing things that make you unhappy. And that is as simple as it gets. Happiness is the only thing that matters in this world. Like in my Instagram caption, I said, my greatest fear is coming to the end of my life only to discover that I was capable of more happiness, more success, more adventures, more life.
And at the time, Ryan had 20,000 subscribers. He was making $550 a month on YouTube, give or take. His rent was $500 a month. And he had those 20,000 subscribers, determination, and a dream. But you know what he didn't have? A wife. Yeah, we've finally come full circle. So we've made it to June of 2018. Ryan, at this point, he was 19 years old. He'd recently hit maybe 30,000, 40,000 subscribers, and he just started to dip his toes into the waters of making videos, which I've seen described by multiple people as being sort of Cody Caro-esque, which would explain why he collaborated with Danny Gonzalez. I'm only just now putting these pieces together. I did wonder, I was like, what is Ryan Trahan doing? I didn't realize how old that video was when I watched it. That is so weird. I actually didn't know about this whole phase of Ryan's YouTube career. So Ryan's channel, less than a year after he started uploading consistently, had started to skyrocket thanks to his dedication to making high quality videos, and with, a little helping hand from participating in the commentary bros genre, which was absolutely popping off at the time. And Hailey at this point in her life was 17. Her content had grown a lot, obviously, since her first video in 2011. Surprise. But she was still sort of doing the same kind of content. She was in the business of making vlog and challenge and dance content for her ever-growing audience of girly pops. She was actually on the road to hitting 1 million subscribers at that point, which is very impressive. She would go on to hit that goal in July of 2018, so the month after they met. And, with their careers as content creators booming, it only makes sense that both Ryan and Hailey would attend VidCon that year, in the year of 2018. And I guess one of the perks of running a sort of vloggy YouTube channel is the fact that you can actually capture moments that end up being very significant in your life. And Hailey captured herself meeting Ryan for the very first time that day. I'll cut in some clips just because I think it helps to actually see what I'm talking about, and then I'll explain more.
Jade and her friends are on her way. I think she's bringing 2 people along, people that you probably know, but I'm not going to show you until I show you right now.
So Ryan doesn't really like you.
Oh, sick. All right, you got to introduce yourself. Here you go.
Hey everybody, it's your boy, just rocking it out here at the Verve actually, living the LA life. And it's pretty crazy because, Hailey Pham, we were just had some beef going on. I noticed that, I don't know, have you introduced Jade yet?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so Jade's all like, hey, Ryan doesn't like you, so he's not gonna meet you. And then it turns out that Hailey was like, yeah, I actually don't like Ryan either. So I think we're gonna box. Oh, my name is Ryan, by the way. And I think we're gonna box later in the vlog.
Uncomfortable. I
didn't realize I was talking so loud.
There's so many people.
I didn't know.
He's just
Take the camera.
Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna stop because this is just embarrassing.
Can
you stop embarrassing me?
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll try.
You're not at VidCon. You're at the Verve.
We have to act like normal humans right now. Okay.
So basically, the Jade that Hailey was referring to throughout these clips is another content creator. Surprise, surprise, I know. Another content creator at VidCon? And her name is Jade Damawangsa. The story goes that Jade had been watching Hailey Pham's videos ever since she was a kid herself, even though she is the same age as Hailey, which I think puts into perspective just how young Hailey was when she started her journey to becoming a successful YouTube creator. But either way, to me, it sounds like Jade and Hailey connected at VidCon and became friends, and it sounds like Jade and Ryan Trahan maybe were already friends, but they met up at VidCon. Either way, Jade was out there networking, okay? Get it, girl. And Ryan and Hailey were out there awkwardly flirting, which is pretty on brand for both of them, to be fair.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna taste mine. I asked for the sweetest things, and she told me to...
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is this the camera that's the new one?
I don't know, it's the Canon M5.
Yes.
Despite how, awkward it might have seemed to the average viewer, the vibes were definitely there. You can infer that they were definitely there because Jade, who was their mutual friend and the only reason that Ryan and Hailey even met up that day, she left for a meeting, okay? She left these 2 people that had just met alone by themselves. That only happens if you're sensing something, you know? Despite Hailey saying this,
She left us together, still two Texan kids, and I hate it.
I think she may have actually been enjoying Ryan's company more than she was willing to let on, because the two of them chose to stick together, right? When Jade left, they chose to hang out. And, you know, despite Hailey's protest, though, I just hate you so much. They were sitting here, you know, with their shoulders suspiciously close, but not quite touching. And then it cuts and they readjusted and they were sitting with like their feet suspiciously close together and actually touching. So it's clear that day love was blooming for Ryan and Hailey. They got on like a house on fire, Ryan said. He later said that it felt like they'd known each other and been best friends forever. Honestly, it is kind of awkward to watch in the most endearing way possible. It's definitely like, it's a puppy love kind of meet cute, you know what I mean? Oh, it just takes you back.
She just spilled her cup of water on me and then said, I didn't do that on accident.
Doing that thing again where he like screams in the middle of a... Nice one, you got me there. You got me on that one.
Snap out of it, girl. Clearly, well, it seems like Ryan and Hailey were not overly willing recipients of Cupid's arrow, but if it's gonna happen, then it's gonna happen, right? So Hailey ended this day with a quick recap on her vlog in which she discussed with her audience how she found it difficult to pronounce a last name that would also eventually belong to her.
I meant Ryan Trahan. Really hard for me to say that last name. I think it should be Trahan, but it's Trahan, whatever. He's currently blowing up on the internet. Super great guy. I know I made a lot of jokes about hating him and how he's not funny, but his channel is actually really funny and really great, whatever.
Isn't that funny? I mean, I don't know if Hailey actually took Ryan Trahan's last name. They've publicly retained their own respective last names. I'm just trying to transition. Okay, I didn't have the smoothest transitions this time around. So basically, Jade, Hailey, and Ryan became fast friends after meeting at VidCon, and Hailey and Ryan went on to feature in a few of Jade's videos. The trio even made a song together, which I bet was Ryan's idea.
And now we're gonna make some sick beats on Garage Hero.
If you want to know what he thinks is funny, he thinks making beats and then trying to rap is like really funny.
It's not trying if you're good, okay?
If you've seen my Part Baker video, this kind of gives Lil Clorox doing a cover of Ariana Grande's 7 Rings. And obviously this song was made just for fun. It was made to be a bit in one of Jade's videos, a video that was called 3 Easy Tips to Create Viral Content. Seriously, it's that easy. But I'm just baffled as to why they never pursued a career as a braggadocious rap group after this, because I mean,
screenshot her news, now your bitch wanna fight me. Yeah, I did some drugs, that's why all the teens like me.
Swipe up, I put the link in my bio.
Hi, my bio says entrepreneur. That's how you know I'm the shit.
Jeez, I do not need to see those thighs. You post at midnight, but ain't it past your bedtime? Go
Flex
to
on the
sleep.
gram, flex on the gram, flex on the gram, flex on the gram.
I have sex with girls and shit.
well, no, okay. I get it. I do get it. It's not great. Some of the lyrics, when I first heard this song, I'm not gonna lie to you, I couldn't tell if it was meant to be entirely satirical or if it was supposed to be like true to life at all. I mean, I knew that Ryan Trahan, his lines were a jerk because he was a clean-cut virgin at the time and he was rapping about getting bitches, having sex, taking drugs. I was like, all right, little pube, or whatever your name was, get it? So I knew that was a joke, but Jade sort of portrayed a caricature of an insufferably rich marketing influencer, and then Hailey Pham really played up her family-friendly image in like a mean girl sort of way. So I was like, yikes, at first, you know, before I realized it was part of a video and stuff like that. I was like, was this a serious... Like, are they seriously saying that stuff? You know how, it's Everyday Bro, obviously not the most serious song in the world, but everyone, like, you still hear, England is my city, from an English fella, and you're like, oh my goodness, did you mean that when you wrote it? Jade clarified in her video that the song featured in. She said, it was made to highlight 3 strategies that could be used to produce viral content with ease. The first was to use a trending keyword. They used gram or Instagram, and that's meant to optimize searchability. You know, you put it in the title, people search for gram. Oh my god, flex on the gram, flex on the gram. I love this song. The second was to look for a space with low competition but high demand. So obviously Jade closed in on the marketing guru SoundCloud rapper scene, a crossover that we always wanted but just had never deserved. And the third was to be emotionally polarizing, which Jade achieved by including those controversial lyrics that you heard that would stir up emotions in viewers, like, I have sex with girls and shit. So great, now that we've completed our deep dive into flex on the gram, which, by the way, unfortunately only ever managed to hit about 3,000 views on YouTube. Real shame. We can move back onto, you know, the topic of Ryan and Hailey. So Ryan and Hailey, like I said, they met in June of 2018. And then in July of 2018, Ryan uploaded this video. It was entitled Waxing Gone Terribly Wrong with Hailey Pham. Because like I said, her shtick at the time was she was a good little Christian girl, but she made videos testing out, you know, like a stripper's hacks to waxing her vag. In this video of Ryan's, it accidentally like perfectly captured that awkward energy that exists between two people who are not yet dating, but inevitably will be dating at some point. That's exactly what it was, just textbook.
What's up?
Hey.
What are you doing here? So you guys might know, this is Hailey Pham.
Basically, in this video, they reviewed Hailey's video of her waxing her unmentionables, which is definitely a new approach to the commentary genre. I mean, like, if you wouldn't say it to their face, then don't say it behind their back, I suppose, right? So it's great that Ryan had her here. Respect to Ryan Trahan, he's braver than I. And then at the end of this video, they mentioned playing Fortnite together, and they actually play some Fortnite. I do kind of miss this time on YouTube where it was just a little bit more random. But throughout this, they continue the charade that Hailey is not enjoying Ryan's company when we all know darn well what the truth is, Hailey.
So after we met at VidCon, I found out that you live stream Fortnite.
Yes, sir.
And basically, she invited me one time. You know, I'm like, hey, I'm pretty good.
Okay, no. You invited yourself. I was on live stream, felt too awkward to decline. And the entire time they're like, you look really annoyed, Hailey, what's going on?
I'm cutting this out.
Side note that they also made a video called Fortnite Dances in Real Life on Hailey's channel, in which they did exactly what it says on the tin. And I think, honestly, the most notable thing to mention here is that this video is the first time that Hailey acknowledged the existence of Ryan's cough laugh. You know, the... I can't do it.
Hey, oh my god.
Hey ladies, this one's for you.
That noise was his laugh.
And honestly, other than that, I mean, like, me personally watching these videos, I was seeing the foundations of a great friendship and at least a reasonable relationship. But Ryan and Hailey, 1 month into knowing each other, were super comfortable together. They were totally fine to goof off around each other and to roast each other. And it honestly didn't seem like they were holding anything back, except for maybe their real feelings for one another. In the same month, July of 2018, Hailey wrote an entry in her journal in which she expressed that she was sure that she was going to marry Ryan Trahan in the future. And Ryan has said that he felt the absolute same, except he didn't journal, so he didn't write it down. Lame. Where's your proof, Ryan? He actually did have proof. What was it? I haven't written this down. For her birthday, after they met, he like collected vials of some gravel and some water maybe from the beach that they visited. I can't remember the story exactly, but basically he put a little note in the vial that said like, I'm gonna marry you, and this was like 3 months in, so he knew, and he did write it down. What a good boy. Like I said, Hailey has made a lot of her videos unavailable for public viewing, and so has Ryan. That's no issue at all, obviously, except it was an issue because it really impeded my ability to dive deeply into this absolutely desperately important topic. So really problematic. It's made this timeline totally botched, unbelievable. I'm kidding. I just wanted to like drop in there that there is a lot of lost media surrounding Ryan and Hailey, like so much that we haven't even gotten to yet. But in this time period specifically, I remember a Q&A they did while they were baking. I liked that. That was great. It's gone. But there is this video entitled ASMR Guessing Food Challenge featuring Hailey Pham, Kennedy Walsh, and Ryan Euro that Ryan uploaded in like July, August of 2018, on which Hailey commented, "This video was good, but did you see the last 10 seconds of this video? Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the shout out, Ryan. I'd love to collaborate more. You're kind of cool. I kind of liked you. Good luck with the channel." And Ryan responded, "Thanks. It was great collaborating with you. We should hang out again sometime soon." And Mr. Beast also said, "That was actually hilarious." So, yeah. And then, at some point, Ryan and Hailey realized that they were using collaborations as an excuse to hang out more with each other. And now, jump scare for the unprepared. On November 24th, 2018, Ryan hard launched his relationship with Hailey on his YouTube channel with a video titled, "First Road Trip with My Girlfriend." Can't just spring that on us, Ryan. Jeez. Give a girl a warning. This video came out about 9 months after he'd promised his audience a girlfriend reveal back in March of 2018.
Any chicas at the moment? What is a chica? A girl or young woman? Oh, any girls? Oh yeah. I'll be doing a girlfriend reveal in about 2 weeks, so just be looking forward to that.
Before he even met Hailey, or had a girlfriend, because Hailey was his first girlfriend, but that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to lie a little bit sometimes, Ryan. No, it's fine, really. And this is a sweet video. It's kind of reminiscent of the proposal video that he'd eventually make for her later on down the line, and it sort of helped me fill in some gaps in my timeline, so that's great, because, you know, you could see and really had me flustered. Is this road trip video? It did make me think though, and I thought this in regards to Kelly Wakasa and Ashley, your mom Ashley as well. Wouldn't it be hard to allow space for a like blossoming relationship when you're documenting it for millions of people to see? I don't know, like to have to turn on your YouTube sonar on your very first road trip with your brand new girlfriend just seems like a bit of a buzzkill. I've tried my hand at vlogging, and I love the end result of being able to look back on what is essentially a snapshot of hopefully a happy moment in your life. Like I vlogged myself going on this boat trip, spirit of adventure. I'm so glad that I have that video, because it's not something that would normally be so accessible. It's so cool to, you know, see the narration, see exactly what you did that day. But I also hated vlogging because of the way that it takes you out of every single moment that you're in, because you're constantly thinking like, oh, should I record this, or should I line up a shot here? I don't know, maybe it just wasn't for me. It definitely wasn't for me, but I guess I can imagine that it's hard to have boundaries when your relationship is so mixed in with your career. I'm sure it's fine for Ryan and Hailey, but I'm pretty sure that's why BF versus GF broke up off the top of my head. And I'm sure it's happened to a lot of other content creator couples, but anyway, I don't think that featuring their relationship and their content was much of an issue for Ryan and Hailey, because they seemed to have a blast on their road trip either way, and they were working the whole time regardless of the fact that they were on a trip. I don't know, I think they're a bit of a workaholic couple, but still they seem to have fun, like I said. And Hailey even dropped a bomb in this video, or like the bomb. She dropped the bomb, the 4-lettered 1-syllable bomb. She said love.
Why are you so energetic?
Because I'm in love. Are you keeping that in?
I know. It was also great. I feel like at the start of the video, the YouTube sonar was in like full force, but they kind of toned it down, maybe even turned it off for a bit while they were vlogging in the car and vlogging while they were actually at Big Bend National Park. That's where they went. And that whole sort of segment, most of the video felt very real world like. I said what I said. Real world like. I'm a professional worderer. Yep, that's me. Anyway, we learned in this video about road trip Big Bend National Park, we learned that Ryan and Hailey have honestly very similar approaches to things like life and travel and work, and that they were influencing each other in positive ways. They're not entirely alike, but later on they described themselves as sort of, it's kind of like looking in a mirror and seeing yourself reflected back at you. That's what they'd say about, you know, being in the same room with the other person. I thought that was quite nice. They're different and they can appreciate their differences, but they aligned on a lot. Ryan also mentioned in this video, which is of note, he said that he was in the process of trying to, I'm assuming, break his lease in downtown Tampa in the apartment he had there so that he could move to Texas, which is not only where he originated from, but also where Hailey was living, so that they could be together. And so, you know, these two teenagers had known each other for a few months. They'd been dating for like a month, and one had already decided that these are the perfect circumstances for me to uproot my entire life under. Ryan was absolutely, totally, no questions asked, prepared to move to another state for a girl, which I'm only bringing attention to because this is a hint at some criticism that Ryan and Hailey received a lot, honestly, throughout their relationship. And it's the fact that they just have done everything in their life so fast. Ryan is a runner, so I guess it kind of makes sense that he'd be sprinting through life rather than walking. I think walking's a bit slow for him. He's got legs of lightning legs, sonic lightning legs. But we'll talk about this more later down the line. For now, all you need to know is Ryan and Hailey have never wasted a second in their lives. It's just they decided what they wanted, they pounced at it, and while they were holding down that thing that they caught that they wanted, they'd glance over their shoulder and they'd see something else that they wanted, and they'd leave that thing and they'd pounce at the other thing. They're like Tigger hopping on, what are those heffalumps? What are the monster little elephant things in Winnie the Pooh? Are they monsters? I can't remember. But anyway, I'll continue on this timeline. Let's get a move up. We actually probably need to jump ahead a little bit because I could spend a lifetime just talking about like the videos that Ryan and Hailey have made together and little moments and quotes that viewers have been privy to. I mean, like, we have so much insight into their lives. It's crazy. But like I said as well, a lot of the content has been deleted. Yeah, we'll move on. I feel like I've laid the foundation of Hailey and Ryan's relationship for you now, so come on in. Step on up, you know, there's no door yet, but make yourself feel at home and come in while I build the rest of the house. So let's start talking about the dynamics of Ryan and Hailey's relationship a little bit, as far as like what we know as viewers, obviously. I haven't interviewed them or anything. Oh, have I? No, I actually haven't, don't be silly. I would never speak to someone willingly, I hope you know that. As much as I love to yap, it's to a camera. If I see someone in real life, gone. Anyway, so basically, like I said, a lot of content has been deleted. This is kind of where I start relying on research and my own memories and the accuracy of comments that are mostly on gossip forums to help me get my facts straight, which you can understand, I'm sure, why some of these things might be difficult to fully trust. So if you know anything I don't, or if I get something wrong, please do feel free to enlighten us in the comments. I don't really care about the stuff that I'm missing out on, though, from their deleted content, because I feel like they deleted it for a reason, so I don't really want to dig into that. Okay, so Ryan and Hailey, as far as my understanding goes, both came from reasonably humble beginnings. Ryan has specifically commented on his childhood. He's spoken about how he was raised by a single dad who had dropped out of high school to take care of his single mother, who was, of course, Ryan's grandmother, and his grandmother would play a huge part in Ryan's life growing up. But he shared that, and he said pretty much that he was working his way up from the bottom in life. He said his family, you know, had never had much, and he wanted to make a bigger and better life for himself. As far as Hailey's upbringing goes, I couldn't find anything to suggest that it wasn't, you know, fairly typical. I mean, she did have the opportunity to participate in sports. She did a lot of sports, she said, like gymnastics, taekwondo, obviously dance, she stuck with. It seems like she generally enjoyed a comfortable life growing up, although I don't think her family was cut out for like the top 10 most wealthy families in America list. You know what I mean? She had it okay. And so although Ryan, by the sounds of things, probably did not have as stable of a childhood as Hailey did, neither of them started life as a shoo-in for success. None of their parents were like Hollywood producers, nothing like that. So they'd have to work for anything they wanted in life, and they were well aware of that from a young age. And so when the opportunity of having this fruitful career on YouTube came within their grasp, you best believe both of them, they approached it from a similar perspective, I think, of like, I can make my life and the lives of my family members so much better with this. And so they grabbed that opportunity with both hands, and they held on tight, like one of those mechanical bull rides. They were not going to let go. Hailey has sort of touched on this. She's spoken about the fact that her career had already started when she was in high school, and so she sort of felt limited by the expectations that people had of her to graduate, because she was so locked in already to all of the potential that she had to branch off from her YouTube channel while it was still, you know, ripe for the picking, all these opportunities. She basically said that high school just felt like a waste of time. After a certain point anyway, she used to be a pretty good student from what I saw, but then she just started, you know, it wasn't the most important thing in her life. When she was just 17 years old, there's footage of her speaking about how she had like 10 business ideas scribbled into her journal that she couldn't wait to pursue after high school. And she was basically, she said, putting a decreasing amount of effort into her studies and, you know, going to college and stuff like that, and a increasing amount of effort into content and brand deals and business. So Hailey hadn't even reached adulthood yet, but her priorities were elsewhere than high school. They were in business and growth. She had that growth hustle mindset, baby, and she wanted to take things to the next level. And so did Ryan. Ryan, we've already kind of spoken about. He had a similar perspective when it came to college. He felt, you know, he was suffocated by the expectations he was facing from professors and advisors and the NCAA, especially when he knew at that point that he was preparing to drop out. He knew that his dreams in life didn't come hand in hand with a college degree. He'd spoken about how he'd seen and experienced struggle firsthand, and he'd determined that he was not going to lead a life of struggle himself. He planned to excel in life. He planned to go above and beyond what a degree could offer him. On YouTube, you know, Ryan found joy not only in the possibility that content creation gave him to have an impact on others, on his viewers and people that he came across on the street, but also in the sheer possibility he had in terms of earnings. The potential was limitless, and he knew that he was destined for greatness. So when YouTube started doing well, he was like, well, this is me. He's spoken about how he sort of planned to work hard and enjoy life and surround himself with good people and generally live comfortably and happily, and studying was not really going to help him with any of that at that point. So he leaned into YouTube, he gave it everything he had, and he really treated it like a business. He looked forward to doing good things for himself as well as good things for the world, in the sense that he continued to be passionate about the plastic problem that plagues our waters and finding solutions for that. And he basically wanted to use YouTube as a base for his earnings and his marketing and build off of that. I don't know, actually, one thing I didn't look into is whether Ryan is still concerned about plastic. I'm not sure, but basically Ryan was motivated to build like a better, more fulfilled life for himself off the back of his YouTube channel, just as Hailey was. And it's weird when you think about it, because Ryan and Hailey were practically kids when they met, but they both already had lucrative careers, Hailey even more so than Ryan, and they still had further dreams to accomplish. And then, as I've mentioned, they also had determination and a possibly unhealthy addiction to working, and so together they were a force to be reckoned with. But Hailey, at the age of 17, told her friend Jade, who introduced Ryan and Hailey, that her goals in life were not to graduate and go to college like the average 17-year-old, but rather to buy a house and to travel. And it's almost unfathomable just how attainable those goals were for her to achieve at such a tender age. A bit of backstory is that by 2019, my understanding is that at that point, Hailey's parents had gotten a divorce. Hailey had moved out, and she was now living in an apartment with her mother, and I think she was also providing financially for her mother because her mother had lost her job. I remember Hailey bought her a car. Hailey was definitely the breadwinner. And then at some point her aunt, I think, was also living with Hailey and her mother. I don't know. A lot of people, I think, would consider that to be a shitty situation. You know, imagine having so much money, you barely know what to do with it. You move out to live a life of freedom as a teenager with all your stacks of cash, and then 2 adults move in with you. Be a bit of a buzzkill, right? Be like, can't you guys go anywhere else? But I mean, you do these things for family, don't you? And I also get the vibe that Hailey and her mum were great friends, or are really great friends, I hope still. And, you know, they enjoy supporting each other. I think I remember when Hailey was at VidCon in 2018, it was her mum driving her around. They obviously enjoyed doing things in life together, traveling together, and etc, etc. And Hailey wasn't exactly put off by the idea of helping her mother out. Like, she even spoke in vlogs about potentially raining her YouTube moolah down on her mother and buying her mother a house of her own, which is a wild thing to be considering at the age of 18. But I feel like it's also not uncommon for kids to dream of affording their parents some luxuries in life, or even some basic comforts in life if they're not in a great situation. I know I'd do that for my mum if I could, but still though, I do think that, like I said, Hailey was the breadwinner of her family now, and she was 18. She barely 18 as well. I think the pressure on her shoulders to provide for her mother was like an axe to the neck of her childhood. I mean, you can't be a childhood and enjoy your youth if you have this looming anxiety over your head that you have to make money to support your family. On the subject of moving out, Hailey moved out at 17, and she didn't move out to get away from her parents or anything. It was more so because she associated getting an apartment with being more productive. Basically, Hailey felt stifled at home. She felt like it was ugly there, so she didn't want to vlog there, and she wanted to make higher quality videos. She wanted to start a podcast, and she generally felt like she'd just be more productive in her own space with a home office. I think she must have been working from her bedroom or something before. And so Hailey took the first step towards creating an ideal life for herself, and she moved out. But she didn't just want to work in her new apartment, obviously. She also had goals for the place. She said she wanted to love others there, as cheesy as it may sound, and she wanted to have a nice space for people to spend time. She wanted to prepare food for guests and to generally just be accommodating. She said in her family home they didn't really have places to sit. It wasn't a nice house to visit, she didn't feel like, and so she wanted to cultivate that space herself. And she also wanted to be a cute aesthetic vlogger. And it was also pretty imperative that Hailey, buckled down and worked to create better content around this time and, foster more brand relationships and things like that, because it was around this time that she announced that due to her career on YouTube and the fact that she, vlogged her life and stuff like that, she was very likely going to be kicked out of high school. And so in her senior year, I think maybe a semester away from graduating, Hailey, who had become less and less of a motivated student since her career kicked off, she dropped out of high school. People have said not the most ideal decision. I dropped out of high school and I don't regret it because I know that I can always go back. And also in New Zealand, as soon as you hit 20, you don't really need a high school education for anything. You just need to be able to prove that you're going to be suitable for whatever tertiary study you want to undergo. So I don't know. I understand why people are saying it was a rough decision, especially because she was so close to graduating and has no other life experience. I've worked other jobs, etc. But I think probably that also she wouldn't have had much incentive to stay in school. So I can understand why she made the decision, even if it wasn't necessarily the greatest one. And also back in 2018, Hailey, due to anxiety, I think she said, had also stopped dancing, both competitively and in the sense of even attending any sort of dance class. She just wasn't doing it anymore. And unfortunately, when you cave into anxiety, it only gets worse. So suddenly Hailey, she wasn't really going out and doing anything anymore. She was, but it was in her own little bubble. She was living in her own little bubble with her own selective circle of people around her, and she was sort of wrapped up and suffocating in the blanket of internet culture, and that is just not good for your development or your psyche or your morale. It's so easy to get hooked on the internet, and this is the whole point that I wanted to make in this video, and it's at the end of this video I'm going to talk about it. But it was just like the tether to the real world that Hailey maintained through going to school and going to dance class. It was lost, and so following this, it became very clear to viewers that Hailey was at unrest with herself. Her identity flip-flopped all over the place. She had Pinterest boards for who she wanted to be and the life she wanted to live. Everything was on Pinterest. And Hailey became the type of person to invest in lavish and unnecessary goods as a means to make content and to supposedly improve her life. Like, oh, if I get this, I'll be better. If I get that, I'll be better. It kind of started with her apartment, and then it moved on to things like, I'll get a nice car, I'll decorate my car really nicely with like sparkles and scrunchies, and it was just one thing after another thing. And she also became increasingly critical of herself, her appearance, her aesthetics, especially in comparison to her fellow influencers. She'd just pick herself apart, like casually, kind of like nonchalant, jokingly, but it was like, you're thinking about this too much. Like, it was obvious that it was playing on her mind. And it's a shame because obviously, I mean, this is obvious, but it's hard to remember all the time, is the internet is not real life, and it certainly shouldn't be the most important thing in your life, because this is life. Anything on a screen, it's different. It should supplement your life. It shouldn't be your life. And you know, Hailey was getting swept away in this endless barrage of opinions and fads, and it was just a one-way ticket to insanity. A little bit of a disconnect when it comes to the internet goes a long way, especially if your job is online. You need that separation from it. You have got to have other things in your life. I'm kind of talking to myself as well here. But because Hailey was so work-oriented, like she is a very hard worker, she's a motivated person, and focusing so much on her career, Hailey threw nearly everything that was beneficial to her, becoming like a good, well-rounded person, to the wayside. You know, it wasn't exactly pretty to watch either. I mean, teenage girls can already have issues with their sense of self and their identity at the best of times, but Hailey's choices only added fuel to that fire. I think this is kind of what Taylor Swift was talking about when she said, how can a person know everything at 18 but nothing at 22? Oftentimes that you can have your whole life like clearly mapped out, and you can know exactly which direction you need to head in to reach your destination, only to look back with hindsight and realize that your map was an absolute mess and you forgot to even include New Zealand on there. Easy mistake. But Taylor also hit Hailey's other plight on the head, the nail of Hailey's other plight on the head, when she made a reference to essentially having an expiry date. You know, how long will it be cute? All this crying in my room, that whole Nothing New song. It kind of feels like Hailey had to live fast. She had to keep up with the pace that life was setting for her. She had a successful career at the age that most teenagers are worried about, getting good grades and applying to colleges. You know, where am I going to go to college? Am I going to go nearby to home, or am I going to go as far away as fucking humanly possible? In the wise words of, I suppose, who is now the featured poet in this section of the video, Taylor Swift, Hailey was so ahead of the curve that the curve became a sphere. She was kind of chasing her own tail. And because of Hailey's lifestyle changes and personal changes, you know, changes in her personality and how she viewed the world, a portion of Hailey's audience began to feel alienated from Hailey, which I feel like is kind of an almost inevitable side effect of producing content that revolves almost entirely around yourself and your life. You're bound to, like, in the same way that you don't stay friends with everyone that you were close to in primary school or high school, you don't continue watching the same YouTubers that you watched when you were like 16 into adulthood, right? Some people you grow with, a lot of people you grow apart from, and that's just a fact of life. I've noticed a lot of vlog channels I come across on YouTube that have upwards of, say, like 1 million subscribers, but they only get like 5,000, 20,000 views per video, and I think that's a huge reason why is, you know, people maybe align with these YouTubers at a certain stage in their life, but then they move on and the YouTuber stays behind, or the YouTuber moves on and they stay behind, and it's interesting. But I think there was a huge problem in that, in the fact that the rise of Hailey's YouTube channel aligned very much, like it could strongly be attributed to the adoration that people started having for relatable content creators. She was a relatable girly. And so, you know, not really being relatable to her core audience anymore, and not even really trying to be, was a nail in the coffin of Hailey's career in a sense, at that stage anyway. But still, Hailey trucked on. She was full of bright ideas for her career and for the future. You know, and if you remember months ago, Ryan was talking about how he wanted to move to Texas to be closer to Hailey. We've already spoken about Hailey's living situation, so I really need to get to this. I think that what Ryan had done in 2019 was he'd up and moved from downtown Tampa into possibly the same apartment block that Hailey was living in Texas. I'm not 100% sure. At least he'd moved to Texas and he lived nearby. But they hadn't totally joined their lives together yet, which understandably, because they'd only been dating for a few months. They were very young, so I mean, like, a tiny bit of space wouldn't hurt in that case, right? But disregard what I just said, because very shortly after Ryan moved to Texas, Ryan and Hailey began to house hunt. And they weren't just looking around for rentals, I don't know. They were in the market to buy a house, not a cheap house either. They were looking at like mansions. And you might be thinking like, geez, isn't buying a house with your boyfriend of a year or so a bad idea, especially when you're still a teenager? But as we've spoken about, these two were living life on the fast track. And they didn't really seem concerned about what seemed logical to people on the outside looking in. They were trekking through life at the pace that felt right to them. And around this time, maybe this is like mid-2019, I'm going off my memory here, mid-2019 maybe, they decided to open a joint channel, a family channel, called The Trahan Family. The Trahan Family. It's a mix of their two last names. It also sounds like family, because they're dating, they've got a cute little dog together. Do you get it? You get it. The Trahan Family channel has since been scrubbed from the internet because Hailey and Ryan both follow the pattern of like erasing things that they no longer align with, which is fine. I'm just saying that because I can't offer you any proof of this channel's existence, really, but I can tell you that I was ever so slightly along for the ride. I swear it was real, I think. Around the time that Ryan and Hailey were house hunting, I tuned in to watch because I was close in age to Hailey. It wasn't in the greatest situation at home. I never had been, and I'd always been looking forward to moving out, and it was finally like tangible for me that I might be able to, so I was really interested in like moving out vlogs, you know, moving into my new apartment in NYC and stuff like that. We don't have those things in New Zealand, by the way, so I got my hopes up pretty high, and then I moved into a moldy little damp flat. But to be fair, I was living off of like $300 a fortnight, so no shit, I moved into a moldy little damp flat. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead. Basically, I kind of had the same sort of mindset that Ryan had, where I was like a little bit delusional, honestly, like this is not the level I'm gonna live my life at. I'm gonna do better, I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna have an impact, I'm gonna live a comfortable life. And I was always drawn to YouTube. I was grinding on YouTube just like they were. I had the work ethic that only an online school teenager avoiding doing their schoolwork could possibly have. I was just pumping out videos, and so like what I'm trying to say is I kind of escaped through these house hunting vlogs. I remember them, and I also remember not really understand, like I wasn't looking at buying a house myself, I didn't really understand the process, but I knew that these people were rich, so I didn't really take anything that like, I just wanted to enjoy someone with a little less stress in their lives about their living situation. Like it was a nice escape. But what was nothing more than a dream for me was a reality for Ryan and Hailey. These kids were about to buy their very own home at the ages of like 18 and 19, 20. I do remember them running into some issues. I'm sure they had a great deposit, but because they were both self-employed and they had very little credit history, I think it was harder for them to get banks to accept them. But these two, they had more determination than a competitive eater at an all-you-can-eat buffet. So I don't think that ended up hindering them too much. Some viewers, I kind of mentioned that they had this like nonchalant attitude towards home ownership, and they were like casually looking around $1 million mansions and stuff in their vlogs, and some viewers were not fans of that. They're like, are you really going to walk around this huge mansion at the age of 18? How old is unteen? Totally unfazed by the sheer responsibility of paying off a huge mortgage, but I think I think it was the way that they came into money so young and seemingly so easily that sort of rubbed people the wrong way. Like, they didn't have to save for years to afford a house, and they didn't have to work with a small budget that meant that they couldn't have everything they wanted, stuff like that. It wasn't realistic at all. And so it was very strange to watch in that way. I do understand. Still, eventually they obviously bought a house, otherwise this would be a pretty pointless segment, all things considered. So nearing the end of 2019, maybe this is like September or October, Ryan and Hailey moved in together, and what a lot of their viewers saw was it wasn't two legal adults taking a step forward in their lives together. It was more so two kids playing house that people saw. I understand. I mean, especially if you were older than them at the time, it was pretty clear that you were watching people who were not yet fully matured, but you don't have to be fully matured to do things in life. So I understand though, in the sense that both of them were super vocally averse to eating vegetables, which they'd talk about while cooking in their huge kitchen in the house that they owned. That did feel like a weird dichotomy. I was like, do you need your mummy and daddy to tell you to eat your veggies? Because they're not here, because you've just paid $1 million for a house. But to be clear, not liking a certain food doesn't make you childish. I think it was just the fact that they were genuinely so young that contributed to my brain sort of connecting to that. A lot of people were commenting on how young they seemed, so it was probably their attitudes as a whole. But I mean, you've probably noticed by now in this video, there is a trend with Ryan and Hailey of doing things both quickly and entirely. Like, they didn't half-ass anything, and they weren't going to rent like a really nice apartment or whatever they were going to buy. Honestly, to get on the housing market doesn't seem like an unclever. I sound unclever. It doesn't seem like a terrible financial decision. I don't know. Was it too big and too expensive for them? Probably, but it's fine. I can't really comment on their finances. But around this time in 2019 as well, I remember seeing complaints from viewers left, right, and centre, people saying that Ryan and Hailey had changed. And considering all the focus on their young ages at the time, I'm not sure how that's something that people really found it in themselves to moan about, because, like, of course an 18-year-old is not going to be the same person as they were when they were, what, like 16. When you sign up to watch a teenage content creator, you're essentially agreeing to witness a child develop their brain in real time. That's what you're watching. And I understand that can be exhausting for both the person doing the developing and the onlookers who, like, cringe and grimace and dismay when kids make mistakes and faux pas, but the thing is that humans do this, this little thing called not being the same age and the same person forever and ever, amen. And being a bit messy is kind of all a part of that journey. Life is messy. People are messy, and that's okay. In some ways it's not ideal, of course, but it's how we learn. It's how we grow and change, and our growth should be facilitated with water and sunlight. It shouldn't be stomped on and fed poison. We want to grow and change. It's a good thing. When we make mistakes, we learn from them, and then we don't make the mistakes again because we've learned. It's really a great thing, isn't it? And with all of that said, it was very confusing to see. There was like this subsection of people complaining about how Ryan and Hailey are trying to grow up too fast, and then you have this other subsection of people complaining about how Ryan and Hailey are immature, and then you have this subsection of people that are complaining about birth as well, and it gave me whiplash. And it also gave, like, why are we so invested in how these teenagers are behaving? Why don't we just click away? Like, to me as well, it kind of felt like, say like a lazy teenager getting nagged by their parents. And they're like, well, are you glad that I'm not out there partying and doing drugs or whatever? It kind of felt like that. It felt like that energy. In this case, maybe something more like, well, at least I'm not out there doing what Jack Doherty would do. Something like that would probably be more apt in their case. But in saying that, I do understand two things. For one, particularly Hailey. I mean, Hailey was posting herself to the internet. She didn't have a buffer of having like a niche that was maybe something she was interested in but separate from her. She was the niche. We had so much insight into Hailey's life and her thoughts, and that opened her up to comments about her life and her thoughts. Does that mean that we have the right to be anonymous keyboard trolls? I wouldn't say so. I think it's easier and it feels better to just be a decent human being, even when you have the protection of being behind a screen, tapping away angrily on a keyboard. But some people do consider the fact that, as soon as something's shared online, it's okay to shit all over it. Those people might be quite sad, but they're going to do what they're going to do. And I also understand that while Hailey's values and sort of general aesthetic remained sort of the same, she did undergo some transformations and some soul searching during her formative years. And by some, I mean a lot of transformations and soul searching. And so I can understand why that would drive viewers away and also drive them a bit crazy. But again, like, you can unsubscribe, you can click off. Ryan, on the other hand, he didn't seem to outwardly experience quite as much confusion about his content strategy, his personality, his appearance. He seemed relatively stable, especially in comparison. But still, although he wasn't acting, quite as erratic and wasn't as outspoken about his struggles as Hailey was, there were some changes in his lifestyle and his personality that were reflected in his internet presence. Unlike Hailey's newfound tendencies of striving to live beyond her years and bouncing around making costly purchases and trying to transform herself by changing her hairstyle and her schedule and her eating habits, Ryan seemed to have a more linear growth. That's not to say, though, that Ryan's journey was void of struggle and confusion and other side effects of growing up. Everyone experiences that to a degree. Because Ryan, as we know, he first developed an audience of runners on YouTube to whom he'd share running tips with, like, run more and run better, and whom he would also promote his Neptune water bottle hydration vessel too. But it was only when he abandoned that niche that he started to see real growth on his channel. He was inspired by Cody Ko and Drew Gooden, despite comedy not being his natural calling, and so Ryan tried his hand at making fun of internet folk. And it worked incredibly well for him. A video he made about Lauren Gray, if you remember Lauren Gray, in 2018, that reached nearly 10 million views, and that was his absolute peak. And if you haven't seen the content he was making, you might be surprised to hear this, because I was surprised when I saw it, considering who Ryan portrays himself as being now. But the content he was making was mean. Like, it was mean.
Ryan had found a video format that got views, and his channel had started to grow at a rate he had never seen before. But this commentary style of content was getting views at the expense of making fun of other people.
Genius.
Well, today we're adding another name to that prestigious
Shut up.
No, really, shut up.
I don't blame him. Like, if you saw the videos that I made back in the day, I mean, I think in trying to emulate certain creators when you don't truly understand how to do it, it can come off really poorly. And I feel like that's kind of what was going on with Ryan. And especially like things have sort of, the tides have changed on the internet. Now I kind of associate commentary channels with the likes of Chad, or like recent Danny Gonzalez, Drew Good and stuff like that. These people are people who, you know, pick a group or an entity or a concept to laugh about with viewers, maybe educate themselves on a little bit. But the genre, I kind of forget this, it did get its start with channels like Leafy is Here, who would pick a person, even a child, and honestly just tear them apart, like rip them to shreds. And Ryan Trahan was following in the big clunky footsteps of Leafy is Here. So while his videos on the likes of Lauren Gray and people with strange addictions, those sorts of things, they could be considered humorous. That was definitely their intent. They did achieve a lot of their humor from being crude and harsh and judgmental. And again, I think he was trying to emulate what he was watching at the time. He said comedy wasn't his strong suit, and it just, like, the clips that I saw anyway, it didn't come off well. But despite that, Ryan obviously continued creating commentary videos for quite some time. They were doing so well for his channel. His channel grew from 30,000 subscribers in March of 2018 to 1 million subscribers in January of 2019. That's huge. Like, Ryan had gone from barely being able to make rent payments to being able to live just in a little bit of a more carefree way, you know, a tiny bit. But despite his massive success on YouTube and in life, Ryan wasn't happy. Not truly. All the negativity that he was putting out into the world was only weighing him down. He was handing it out and it was ending up back on his shoulders. When he began making the type of content that he was making, that sort of mean-spirited-ish commentary content, he was 18. He was enjoying his virality and he wasn't concerned about holding back punches because the viewers loved it. And as a creator on YouTube, even now, you learn quickly that audiences love negativity. And so he continued to produce what he now considers to be exploitative content. But eventually though, Ryan said that he became acutely aware that he was clowning on other people's creations, but he wasn't actually creating anything himself. His personality was being mean. Like, maybe these other people he was making fun of, he could call them cringy or whatever, but he was arguably worse because he was mean. And that really started filling him with dread. Every time he sat down to make a video, he'd think like, I can't keep doing this. I can't do this again. And so Ryan privated his commentary videos and he decided to attempt a new strategy. He wanted to make redemptive content, not exploitative content. Ryan wanted to create. He wanted to spread joy, not hate. And I didn't mean to rhyme there. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but I hope you could appreciate. Anyway, so this is when he started broaching topics on his YouTube channel like making homemade candles, painting my face using only my face. It's an interesting one. And he was making a vlog as if he was living in the 1990s. This sort of content went down a treat for his viewers. Luckily, it also revitalized Ryan's love for content creation, and it solidified, I'd say this is what solidified Ryan's place on YouTube as like a welcome little ray of happiness and wholesomeness and sunshine. So Ryan really enjoyed this new stance that he'd taken on his platform, and in knowing that he was putting content out there that was true to himself, was what he wanted to genuinely put into the world, and that he considered to be like more of a gift from himself to his viewers. He found that he was not only receiving less hate, but he was also more capable of separating people's perceptions of him from the person he knew himself to be, because he was putting the right thing out into the world now. And yet, he still felt empty. But we'll discuss more about that soon, because we've reached the part of this timeline now where we can start chowing down on your favorite snack. Controversy, drama, negativity. I know you're excited. I'm not going to focus too much on any negativity. I'm just going to cover the things that happened. For one, I think there was a decent amount of discussion. I saw some people mention that Hailey could come off as like a bit of a bossy boots and maybe seem to be a bit controlling towards Ryan and their content together. That's just the vibe that people were picking up on. And people sort of worried that because Hailey was Ryan's first girlfriend, he didn't realize that their relationship wasn't good. Some even theorized that he stopped making commentary videos and, you know, whatever else he was doing because Hailey forced him to, which I don't know where they got that idea from. But Hailey actually later commented on this sort of thing herself, unprompted. And she said, I used to be mean. I kind of took Ryan for granted. She also mentioned that she saw some things as transactional in some ways. Like, she wanted to ensure that they appeared an equal amount on each of their channels, you know what I mean? So if Hailey starred in one of Ryan's videos and she was like, okay, now he needs to star in one of mine. So she did admit to having that sort of mindset, but she also has mellowed out over time a lot. She's taken leaps and bounds in terms of viewing the relationship as a team effort now, instead of, you know, viewing it as a dog-eat-dog world kind of situation. And Ryan has never expressed anything about feeling mistreated either, as far as I'm aware. He has shared that they can be very similar in some ways, but they are very different in other ways, such as the ways that they express love and the way that they communicate their emotions. So I'm sure that was a learning curve more than anything else. Obviously, they grew through that together. Sorry, I disappeared. Ooh, where am I? I'm behind you. Turn around. No, I'm only kidding. I'm just in my bedroom. My camera battery died. I still only have one, so now you're just going to listen to my disembodied voice while I tell you about Hailey and Ryan's trip to Europe. Now, in September of 2019, Hailey and Ryan, ever the travelers, they booked a holiday to Europe for their 1-year anniversary, and this trip to Europe featured a notorious visit to Santorini in Greece, which we will get into. Basically, trouble brewed. It all started when Hailey ended up being the one that was in charge of making the bookings for their trip. And bless her heart, I mean, she was 18. She probably was not a holiday booking, itinerary planning, girl boss machine just yet, because she probably had barely travelled. She was 18. But she managed to mess up a number of things. I can't really think of a nicer way to phrase that. She's admitted to it herself. I think it's just easy to be upfront rather than beating around the bush. I mean, for starters, Hailey booked their hotel in Italy for an entire month before they were scheduled to land in Italy, but thankfully she realised somewhere along the line that the dates were totally wrong, and she was able to get a refund for the incorrect dates and rebook the correct ones without too much hassle. It was a bit of stress, but it was sorted. That was your starter. Then for your main course, Ryan and Hailey and her mother was coming along as well, they landed in Greece, only to find out that Hailey had booked their Airbnb for the day after they actually arrived, and so they had to scramble to find accommodation for that night. But then we have dessert. So on the way back to the US, Hailey booked the wrong flight, meaning that they actually did not have a flight back. Very complicated. I hate traveling. I don't hate traveling. I hate airports. They're very scary. But to remedy this situation, Hailey and Ryan ended up having to pay $3,000 per person, so about $9,000 total, in order to get everyone home. And that's why you should always have $10,000 sitting around for a rainy day. Hailey obviously was grateful that she had the funds to save this situation, and throughout the whole story, Hailey was accepting of the fact that these issues that they faced on their travels were due to mistakes that she had made, and she held herself accountable. Sometimes you just learn things the hard way, and this was one of those times. And so now you may be thinking, thank you, Talia, this meal was delicious, and you're welcome. But you may also be thinking, I'm not really getting the controversy here. Why is any of this a problem? And okay, there's no pretty way to say this. Hailey Pham got a UTI. Hold on, I'll come back to that because I don't think I'm totally clear on the details here. We need to go back to Greece. I think that sentence might trigger Hailey Pham's fight or flight response. Because, listen, this girl hated her trip to Greece. She did not enjoy it. She expressed in the video that she made, you know, speaking about her trip to Europe, that she felt that it was a waste of time and a waste of money. And you know what? That's okay. It is actually allowed and totally legal to not enjoy visiting a certain place. That's fine. The issue people had, though, was with the way that Hailey shared her disappointment. It was not entirely graceful. Basically, Hailey told her audience that, in case they were wondering, she would not recommend visiting Greece because the economy is struggling and tourism definitely doesn't help with that. And she also said the government is struggling, and also just said overall the trip was not fun. Greece was not fun. She said that it was not as pretty as Instagram influencers made it seem, and that it was crowded, which made it very difficult to shop, and it was not pretty outside of the crowded areas because it was bare and flat and was not very beachy. And it is good that she shared this with her audience at least, because her Instagram pictures made it look like she had a pretty good time there. So she really fed into the, I don't know, unnecessary Santorini hype that she's talking about Instagram influencers giving it. I don't know. Essentially, what I kind of got from this is that Hailey didn't take the time or effort to pop her internet bubble to properly research Greece and plan activities to do there, and then she said it sucked because there was nothing to do and it's nothing like the Instagrammers made it seem. And as someone in the industry of posting Instagram photos, I'm surprised that Hailey didn't consider the fact that nothing on Instagram is ever as it seems. That's probably actually what inspired the Wizards of Waverly Place theme song. But yeah, people, they just didn't really appreciate that Hailey confidently shared a very ignorant view of the world that, again, I think stems from the fact that Hailey was very cut off from the world, from the real world. But then back onto the UTI, because I realised after I said it that it didn't happen in Greece. It's got nothing to do with the grease strip. It's just in the same video. It was an entirely different tangent, same video. So, okay. She didn't even really get a UTI. I'll explain. So, to start things off, Hailey was just not feeling well. She had gastro issues. She had a fever. Not feeling too hot. Well, feeling quite hot, unfortunately. So obviously Hailey sought medical assistance. She was scheduled to go on a trip with Ryan or something, and last minute she was like, no, I'm feeling really sick. But she couldn't go to her doctor, so she went to this random walk-in clinic instead because it was, like I said, last minute. And she apparently, when she went there, she spoke to a nurse that suggested that Hailey might have appendicitis, because you know when you go into the doctors and you're like, I got a sore tummy, and they're like, okay, lie down, and they push on your tummy, and they're like, does that hurt? Because Hailey, the nurse pushed down on her stomach, and Hailey said, yeah, that hurts, because she was like constipated and it was just uncomfortable. But then the nurse sort of started pushing Hailey towards expensive medical treatments or procedures like getting a CAT scan, because she was concerned that Hailey's insides were a ticking time bomb. You know, she thought she might have appendicitis, and Hailey was just expecting to be given some medication for an infection, so she was obviously taken off guard. She was like, whoa, what do you mean appendicitis? I don't have that. From what it sounds, the nurse that Hailey spoke to wasn't very communicative, like was very rushed, and Hailey was new at that point to being in charge of her own health. She wasn't totally confident at that point, I don't think, to stand up for herself and say, hey girl, you gotta slow down a bit here, let me talk to you, you know what I mean? Hailey has touched on having social anxiety to an extent in the past, and so I actually kind of understand her stressy retelling of this story, because I have social anxiety. It's pretty well managed now, but that would probably freak me out a bit too. I'd be like, oh my god, I'll just go somewhere else. I'll just say yes to whatever this person's saying, and then I'll go somewhere else. So that part doesn't bother me. I mean, these things happen in life, but Hailey did make some small missteps. She said something like, this is going to sound offensive, but this girl that I was talking to, this nurse, she wasn't even a doctor. Like, she wasn't my doctor, and she didn't even take a second to get to know me. And I think that was just mostly a phrasing issue. Like, she started with she wasn't even a doctor, but then she rephrased to she wasn't my doctor. But she did say as well, you know, maybe the nurse would get a commission from me paying for a CAT scan, and so like maybe she had a reason to push me towards this that was her own personal gain, which I truly have no first-hand experience with the American healthcare system, but surely not. Like, please tell me that that's not how that works. I'm so sure it's not. That would be no, that doesn't make sense, surely. So anyway, Hailey, after this visit to the nurse, she noticed further issues that were happening downstairs, and so she went to see a gynecologist, except the gynecologist wasn't available, and so she ended up seeing physician's assistants, and they were absolutely stumped. They couldn't figure out what on earth was going on, and so she went home with no answers again. But she was very concerned, because it hurt to do basic human things like walk and sit. Like, everything hurt. And to round everything off, Hailey went on to say that, so eventually she did get to see the gynecologist, and she was diagnosed with having a lip Lipschutz ulcer. It's a condition that really sparks up in sexually inactive adolescent girls, and it causes a fever. That's not what made people mad. What people clung to was that obviously a Lipschutz ulcer, it occurs, you know, on your lady parts, and people clung to the fact that Hailey said that she found herself feeling angry with God at some points because she was pure and she was waiting for marriage, and she felt like she was being punished for it. Basically, she said, like, if I'm waiting to do anything, then why would this happen to me of all people? And listen, I do understand why people got up in arms about this being like a damaging purity culture mindset, but I don't so much get the people that said, like, oh, so you're saying that because I have sex, I deserve to get UTIs, or I deserve to get ulcers. I like get where they got that from, but I also think that it's a little bit twisting her words. Like, I'm not religious, but I would definitely curse the universe a little bit if I got something like a UTI. I'd definitely have a woe is me, why me moment. And so I do kind of like, Hailey had a very religious upbringing, so her woe is me, why me moment was intertwined with that, and she was being honest with her audience about her thoughts, and beliefs do shape thoughts. And saying that, I'm not saying that what Hailey said wasn't even slightly damaging, but to be clear, she didn't call anyone who has sex before marriage grimy little bunnies or anything like that. I understand why some people didn't take kindly to what she said regardless, but I don't think she was mean about it. I think, again, she's just in her own bubble. She's very self-centered. So is self-centered a bad word to use? I don't know. Like, she was focused on herself. She was like, why me? She wasn't thinking about other people so much as she was thinking about herself and saying that, but obviously it came off like she was pointing the finger at other people. Anyway, overall, I think it was the ignorance of Hailey's statements in that video that made people really kick off, like telling people not to visit a country that is struggling economically when tourists would actually serve to help the economy, just because it's not as pretty as it looks on Instagram. You know, stuff like that. Saying stuff like that is a bit rough. I guess it's tricky because Hailey always approached these topics from the stance of, I want to share my experience, my thoughts, in case other girls are going through something similar, which is not criminal. You know, that's not criminal. And a lot of Hailey's audience were Christian girls, young Christian girls. So I wonder if maybe them hearing someone else say something they might have been thinking if something similar happened to them, like, you know, why me when I'm waiting for marriage? If they heard that and realized that other people experience that too, and it's not just them, like, it's always good to have some sort of confirmation that you're not alone. And you also shouldn't really be taking an influencer's word for anything, especially one that has barely reached adulthood, especially when it's related to medical issues. But some viewers might, right? But then if you think that you're sharing something helpful, truly, should you just not? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is here. I think it's pretty clear to me that Hailey is not a bad person and is generally harmless, but just is not, at this stage in her life anyway, I'm not talking about her now, was not the most educated or informed. Obviously, spreading misinformation is not a great thing to do. I don't think she did it intentionally. And I also think that you can have takes that people don't agree with and not be a total villain. But I do understand why people took issue with the things that she said. Moving on. This whole situation was Hailey's first time encountering a real scandal beast out in the wild. Aside from that time that in like 2016, she made a video on which she shared that she felt her school was wrong for teaching the kids about evolution, because I think she received so much backlash from that she had to delete the video. Either way, Hailey went through quite the scandal, and yet it did nothing to stop Hailey in pursuit of her dreams. She wanted to be a boss girl, business slay queen, and she was going to be a boss girl, business slay queen. Girl boss girl. So rather than sort of taking the opportunity of the internet, a huge portion of the internet telling Hailey, essentially, you did something wrong, rather than taking that opportunity to step back and consider her life choices and the things that she believes in amongst the chaos of receiving this backlash and losing subscribers, Hailey just sunk even deeper into her work. And so in maybe November of 2019, she diversified. She launched her clothing brand, Retro Reprise. And this brand, it featured scrunchies, a bright yellow, blue, and red crew neck, and some comfortable, kooky looking sweatpants. And the audience reception to this career move was not great. Hailey had already released girly pop merch for her fans to consume, and Retro Reprise definitely had its own vision that didn't really match the style that her audience would gravitate towards. I think also because of the controversy that Hailey had faced just a few months prior, she was in the sightline of a lot of people that weren't invested in her channel and just sort of knew about her briefly because of this drama. And so overall, the reception of this venture was poor. People were more than willing to clown on it. They didn't want to support this, like, I don't know, they thought that Hailey was this super bratty girl, so they weren't shy to speak out if they didn't like the style of Retro Reprise clothes. Hailey, I think she made a video addressing the concerns of her audience around this time, but I also think that her identity was so shaken at that point that any promises that Hailey made to change and to be a better person were meaningless because it wasn't something she was capable of at that stage in her young life. She had so much discovery to do. But as far as you could tell from their content, even in amidst all this drama, Ryan and Hailey's relationship was sailing on reasonably calm seas. However, I did see someone saying that they may have taken a break from their relationship at some point around this time. I'm not aware of whether that's true or not. Apparently they spoke about it in a Trey family video, but like I said, she's been wiped. She's gone. In their vlog content though, although Hailey's channel wasn't exactly doing its best following her dramas, she was losing subscribers, not getting as many views, Hailey and Ryan were settling into their rural $1 million or so home together, and honestly they were largely fulfilling their goals. Both of them were working hard in their new environment, although Ryan supposedly did rent out an office space elsewhere because he struggled to work at home. But either way, the two of them also almost constantly had friends over. I think they lived with some of their friends, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to share love and to be good hosts in their space, make people comfortable. So although there may have been some growing pains associated with buying a house together and reaching a new level of commitment in their relationship, that was largely kept behind closed doors to be worked out privately, as it should have been, so good for them. But then in 2020, so Hailey kind of abandoned her Retro Reprise business, and in January she pivoted to launching her podcast, Call Me Candid. This podcast she co-hosted with her friend Lily. They branded it as two gals chatting about business, advice, and our experiences. And although speaking her mind in an unfiltered manner had gotten Hailey in trouble only a few months prior, this podcast was innocuous and reasonably well received by fans. On Call Me Candid, Hailey discussed how she grew on YouTube, tips for getting out of a funk, and how she got engaged. On the 24th of May 2020, Ryan uploaded a video simply titled, I Propose. The video began with an introduction in which Ryan revealed that he was planning on proposing at Big Bend National Park, which was the location of their very first road trip in that vlog that we spoke about earlier, and was also the place that they'd said I love you to each other for the first time. So he'd led Hailey to believe that they were heading back out there to Big Bend to film a video for his channel and also to buy a small piece of land. But secretly, he had other intentions in returning to that national park. On the trip there, Hailey actually fake proposed to Ryan on the side of the road, which sent his mind spinning, and later in the day she made the same joke again. Hopefully it was just as funny the second time, but it was definitely stressful for Ryan because he thought that she was onto him, and she kind of was, but she didn't really know the logistics at all, and she thought that he was going to propose the night before he actually planned to do it. She thought he was going to propose the night that they arrived to Big Bend. And so Hailey dressed up cute, she put her hair in space buns, and she joined Ryan and their friends to paint at sunset, and nothing happened. Ryan tried to throw her off by acting real stressed and like laser focused on the production of the video he was making as well. And he'd told her previously that he wasn't even planning on buying a ring until a few months down the line, like until June at the earliest. And all of those factors successfully threw Hailey off the proposal trail. She lost the scent. She truly just believed that they were on a work trip by that point. And so the next day, when Ryan got down on one knee, 1 year and 8 months into their relationship at Big Bend National Park, Hailey was shocked and overjoyed. And of course she said yes. I mean, how could you say no to a man that just said this whole monologue about you?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just 24 hours in the darkest place on earth. This is my proposal video. Oh my gosh. If you're new to the channel or if you don't know, I am madly in love with a girl named Hailey Pham. We've been dating for 1 year and 8 months. We have a house together. We have a beautiful dog. This girl makes me better. She makes me laugh and smile, and I feel like with her, I just squeeze every ounce of joy out of life. About to tear up right there. Jeez Louise, come on, come on. This is where we feel inspired, and this is one of the most heavenly places on earth in my opinion. And there's not a better place I can imagine starting the rest of our life together. Really nervous, I'm very nervous. I don't even know what I'm gonna say. I don't have anything rehearsed, but she thinks we're gonna go on a hike this evening for sunset, and we are. But this ain't a Pinterest photo shoot, Hailey. So with all of that said, I could say a million things about why I love Hailey and why I'm nervous, but I need to go on a run because I told her that's what I was doing, and then we're gonna go on a hike. And I'm gonna marry Hailey. Okay, it's not marriage yet. And I'm gonna propose to the love of my life. Okay, let's do this. Oh, jeez, I'm nervous.
You can't. Unfortunately, the full proposal video has been lost to the volcano where deleted YouTube channels go to die, but that's okay. The snippet is good enough. Hailey mentioned in the Call Me Candid podcast that she had never seen Ryan be as nervous as he was during the proposal, and she also shared that she was so surprised and so busy processing everything that she felt like she had no reaction, which was so funny and actually quite validating for me to hear because I had the exact same experience. It sounds bad to say this, but my fiance is an amazing liar when he wants to be, and so like as much as we'd spoken about like how I wanted to be proposed to and the fact that I obviously wanted to be engaged, I genuinely did not expect him to propose anytime soon. He said I won't even think about proposing until we've got a house together, and I said okay. And so I was just beyond confused when it happened, even though we'd literally like he'd just taken me into the mall to get like a rough ring sizing done, you know, just for the future so I wouldn't expect it when it was actually coming up. And then he bought the ring the same day. Well, I was in the mall talking to a friend that I ran into. I can't believe it. I'm so stupid. And then we had these date night cards from Temu, actually. Date night adventure. You like scratch it off and it reveals a date night idea. And he scratched one and it was go geocaching. And he was so excited about getting this card and I couldn't understand why. But it's because he was planning to propose using some sort of treasure hunt. And so it worked out perfectly, but there's no way he could have known that. And so I was so confused. Anyway, this was my reaction after all of that. I promise I was excited. I was just so shocked that it took a minute to hit me.
Oh my god, you're smart. What the fuck? Did you know that was weird?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. John? What the fuck?
It's so funny. Anyway, although Ryan and Hailey were both comfortable with the pace their relationship was moving at and obviously had discussed the seriousness and the direction of their partnership thoroughly, they even owned a house together. I mean, still, some viewers were skeptical about the idea of two very young people getting married. And a recurring theme throughout, especially Hailey's journey in life, is people saying basically, you're an influencer and you shouldn't be encouraging this. On that note, I think that we need to let influencers influence us less, but I get it to an extent because people do look to influencers for inspiration. Don't do that, but they do. Still though, in my opinion, I don't think it's really fair to expect someone to change the course of their entire lives because they blew up on YouTube when they were like 16. I don't know, it's all a bit of murky waters, I think. Regardless, Ryan and Hailey were over the moon. Their friends and their core audience were in support of them, and their lives really felt like they were on the up and up. They were both confident that they were with the person they wanted to spend the rest of their lives with, and that's real life. You know, it doesn't matter what people on the internet are saying. If that's what they were feeling, then they went and did it. Some viewers speculated that they were probably a little bit sick of the waiting till part of waiting till marriage, but I don't know. I can't really say. I never heard that come out of their mouths myself. Ryan said though that he spoke to older people who he called mentors, and he said that he received the advice that, the two of them, they had a house together, they weren't going to school anymore, they were pretty stable in life, and they said, why wait? What are you waiting for? But these people also mentioned one thing that Ryan and Hailey's audience really contested, though, and it's that the two of them were more mature than others their age. Because the truth is that doing adult things like having a career and buying a house and having to grow up fast to take care of or move away from your parents, it doesn't really make you a more mature person overall. And considering Ryan and Hailey, their paths in life jumped from dropping out of school to being professional YouTubers, I'd wager a bet that they have some significant blind spots as far as life experience is considered. But I guess we all do in some ways, right? I mean, speaking as someone who did have to grow up fast and was considered to be mature for my age from a very young age, I can tell you that only in the past year or so, from maybe the age of 21 onwards, I felt the calm and the clarity that comes alongside your brain actually maturing and your hormones settling. Of course, everybody is different. Everybody progresses differently, and I'm certainly not saying that you will never make a good decision or have an intentional path in life until your brain fully develops, but it's just something to keep in mind on that subject, I think. Like, absolutely do what feels right to you, make your own way in life, but do be aware and realistic about your limitations. And if you're young and you're trying to step up and be a big adult already, you're trying to put your big adult shoes on, then go easy on yourself if the shoes don't fit too well. I felt like I was insane for years because I had to be like 10 steps ahead of where I was really supposed to be in life, and I was doing it, but I could barely handle it. And that didn't make me a failure, and if you're struggling in that same sort of way, it doesn't make you a failure. You're gonna be okay. It's just your brain chemistry, I promise. And honestly, if you do have the thought every now and again of like, man, I might not be ready for this, rather than, man, I feel like I'm already 30, but I'm actually only 13, then congratulations, you are actively fighting the Dunning-Kruger effect. So that's actually a really good sign of your intelligence. Keep it up, babs. This isn't even entirely related to Ryan and Hailey anymore. Let me get back on track. So of course, Hailey began making wedding content, right? This was the big new thing in her life. Of course, she was focusing on it. So Hailey would come to her audience to discuss the process of wedding planning, the color of bridesmaids' dresses, and how she was going to prepare for her wedding, such as workouts she was doing to make her body ready for the honeymoon, if you know what I mean. The topic of marriage and sex were obviously very interconnected for Hailey, and so the channels of communication about both were absolutely wide open during this whole pre-wedding phase on Hailey's channel. And in response to the comments lamenting that Hailey and Ryan were too young to get married, apparently Hailey said that it's nothing to be worried about because people have always been marrying young, and it was historically normal for preteen girls to be wives. So when it comes to Hailey, I feel like I'm just covering a series of like unfortunate, ignorant comments that have only made it onto the internet because she speaks to her vlog camera like she speaks to her best friend. And like there are just some things I'm just like, girl. Like for example, in April of 2020, Hailey's viewers were treated to a chat about her period and her plan to embark on the journey of finding suitable birth control. Again, nothing Hailey speaks about is wrong. It's not wrong to share your mind with people, especially people who are a similar age that might need to feel like they're in this boat together with someone else. But conversations like that sort of became more frequent following Ryan and Hailey's engagement, and they went down quite frankly like foul taste and cough medicine. Like people were just over it. But both Ryan and Hailey were concerned with the idea. They expressed that virginity and waiting until marriage were just not topics that had a lot of healthy discussion surrounding them in media. And so I think Hailey was more than keen to broach these things with her fans because she wanted to, speak about it and hopefully dispel some misinformation that she thought was out there about the concept of waiting until marriage. And of course, I am not a wait until marriage girly, but some of Hailey's points I do understand. Like she said, for example, that your first time is bound to be awkward, so why not have that experience with someone you trust endlessly and you can communicate with, like, your husband. And I do understand that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And honestly, personal preference, right? Like, you do you, girl. It doesn't affect me. But there were some sentiments that Hailey shared with her audience that they just did not appreciate very much. For example, she'd mentioned that she made a promise to God to wait until she was married to have sex when she was young, like 10 years old. And oftentimes without experience, especially when we're really young, we can decide that we will do things in one particular way, only to realize that reality is not cooperating. You know, like, I was convinced I'd only ever be in one relationship in my entire life, and I am so glad that I abandoned that idea when I knew it wasn't working, because if I stuck with it. But it seems that in Hailey's case, her promise continued to align with her into adulthood. So who knows whether there's actually a problem in amongst how Hailey chose to live her life or not in that way. I mean, like, Hailey said when she was younger that she'd never get married as a teenager, and clearly she changed her mind on that. People are not set in stone, and it doesn't seem like she expected herself to be. It seems like she did go with her gut. But obviously she did have a very religious mindset, and that was something that was instilled at her at a young age. It wasn't something that she saw as a problem though, so it doesn't have to be a problem, I don't think. But there were some inherent flaws that people were seeing when it came to Hailey's views on losing her virginity. One was her laser focus on how it was going to happen. Like, she envisioned it happening in the Maldives and seemingly expected things to run without a hitch and be totally magical, although in the back of her mind I think she was aware that it is usually an awkward and unceremonious event. But the second was her laser focus on the fact that it was going to happen. She seemed to be constantly preoccupied by the idea of losing her virginity. Like, she even got a phone case that read "No more waiting," and she generally filled every empty silence with some kind of sex talk. Her channel was quite literally about her thoughts and her feelings and her life, so I don't see that as being an issue. If that's what she wanted to share and that's what she was thinking about, then that's fine. But finally, Hailey got herself into some hot water on the subject of birth control. Hailey, I think, just had a habit of speaking her mind without necessarily being educated on the topic she was speaking about. And again, is that criminal? No. Is she allowed to just ramble to her camera? Absolutely. And basically what she did on both her podcast and her vlogs, if I remember correctly, she spoke about her experience with birth control. On Call Me Candid, Hailey shared that she tried the patch and the dosage of the hormones was high or something like that, and it made her very fatigued and so nauseous that she threw up multiple times in a day, and she was sleeping for like 12 hours and she just was not feeling good. And so she asked her followers, like, does anyone have experience with this? What do you do? And then she received a DM that confirmed her perspective that birth control was not the right path for her when someone shared that they had a bad experience on every single medical birth control method, and so they eventually settled for natural protection. And what is natural protection, you may ask? Oh, well, tracking your cycle and pulling out, of course. I would not recommend this method unless you want children, because it's very much tempting fate, from my understanding anyway. But see, in this podcast, Hailey did clarify that she wasn't trying to spread the message that birth control is bad and that nobody should use it. She said that she'd simply done her research and she chose to rip off her patch in favor of tracking cycles. But people once again were not happy with Hailey and they found her to be uneducated. I think that Hailey just does things in alternative ways a lot of the time, and that really throws people off. Because I just heard a girl talking about her own experience and I found it hard to get upset at that, but some people considered her to, again, be sharing some truly harmful misinformation. And then, okay, I'm gonna start powering through some of this stuff because otherwise this video will actually genuinely be a million hours long. So moving past this whole birth control fiasco and back to Ryan's emotional state. In an interview with Anthony Padilla, Ryan shared that on the 4th of July 2020, he was celebrating the 4th of July with Hailey, and he said there were fireworks going off and he had this realization that he couldn't feel the joy that he was supposed to be feeling in that moment. In fact, despite his successes at work, which he'd sunk his own entire identity into, as he did with everything all the time, and, you know, the fact that he was spending his life with this girl that he loved so much, despite all of that, he hadn't felt anything in weeks. He felt empty, and he started to cry. And his experience that night led him to finding comfort in Jesus, God, and Christianity in general. Basically, Ryan shared that his grandmother was essentially his mother figure growing up. His father was a single parent and was constantly working, and so Ryan would spend a lot of his time with his grandma. You know, he would nap when she napped, even though he didn't like to nap. They just had this very special bond. But when Ryan's grandma passed away, I think he was 13 or 14, he was an atheist at that point, and he found that he, throughout his life from that point on, had this profound lack of closure and a real desire to know what happens after death. But it wasn't until Ryan met Hailey and started asking her questions with a massive amount of skepticism, all of which she answered very logically and graciously, according to him, that he stopped challenging faith and instead found himself aligning with faith. And that night on the 4th of July, Ryan decided that he truly believed in the teachings and the actions of Jesus and how loving it was. So with his newfound faith, Ryan felt joyous. He felt that there was positivity in his life, that he was driven now to spread to others. For the first time, he didn't feel as though he had to earn love, but rather he felt loved in his brokenness. He said he was able to let go of trauma and to forgive people who had wronged him. This changed the way he approached life entirely. It changed the way he approached content, and importantly, it changed the way he approached people as a whole. It changed the way he looked at things. He began to think, how can I benefit this moment, rather than how can this moment benefit me? Some commenters online have pushed the idea that Hailey must be super controlling because she'd managed to turn Ryan to this good Christian boy when he wasn't that way before he met her. But when I hear Ryan's story, I feel like I'm just hearing from someone that went on a truly healing journey. And if anything, Hailey just helped him along the way. Like, Ryan said that he had questioned things since the death of his grandmother, so clearly that seed was planted and it just kind of needed watered. And like I said, I'm not religious, but if someone is finding a reason for them to be happy and a reason for them to go out and make the world a better place in a belief like that, then I really don't see that being a bad thing. I think that Ryan, in sharing this, shared a really touching and inspiring story. And Ryan's discovery of Christianity was not the only path that Hailey walked with him. It was way too dramatic for what I'm trying to segue, but that just didn't work because what I'm moving into is not that deep. But, okay, in 2020, basically, Ryan and Hailey were kind of all over the place in their career. That was part of the reason that people weren't feeling great about their engagement, because they were like, you're literally changing your mind on everything else in 3 to 5 business days. So how can you be sure that you want to get married to this person? But essentially, if you remember Ryan's hydration vessel company, Neptune, that died a sudden death in 2019. It was left out in the cold on the street by Ryan. And then Hailey started Retro Reprise in 2020 and she shut it down like 3 months later, just never to be heard from again. And then she started a podcast called Me Candid, which lasted less than a year before Lily and Hailey abandoned ship. And then also in 2020, I know, stay with me now. Also in 2020, Ryan and Hailey decided that they wanted to flip houses. So they bought this house. They started a series called The House on Cora Street, which was a couple of episodes and maybe 30 minutes long in total. And then they stopped talking about that too. And then they started this business called Homestead at the beginning of 2021, which was a pottery business. I think it was about handmade goods. I actually quite liked that one. But then that fell off a cliff face and disappeared forever. So they were a bit all over the show. And listen, I've started my fair share of businesses in my life that I've realized I'm not cut out for, I don't really enjoy. So I've left a similar trail of like URL graveyards in my wake. And so I kind of understand this mayhem of being like, I love this, to being like, nope, blow it up. I had it. But Ryan and Hailey's audience got tired of it pretty quickly. They seem to be the type of people to abandon things if they don't perform as well as they might hope, or if they're just not feeling it anymore. So they left a lot of things just in the trash, But then on September 4th, 2020, a fellow by the name of SPV Laboratories caught a whiff of these two young YouTubers taking the Autobahn in life, and he released the infamous video entitled Ryan Trahan and Hailey Pham Need to Press Pause. For context, the chapters are as follows. Starts with title, then prologue, a brief history of Ryan Trahan, a brief history of Hailey Pham, a brief history of their relationship, why did you buy a house, why are you getting married, lightning round, and epilogue. And this, by most accounts, was a very good and informative video that I have not rewatched in the fear that it would affect the way that I approach the script myself. But for Ryan and Hailey, if you put yourself in their shoes, it must be so weird to see someone comment in such an in-depth way on like your upbringing and your life choices and your finances, and Ryan said as much himself. But still, honestly, Ryan and Hailey handled things very gracefully as far as public appearances go. It left me actually feeling quite impressed initially. Like, Ryan commented on SPV's video, he said that the video was good and that he accepted that some of the critiques that SPV made were valid. He invited SPV to have a phone call with him, which SPV declined, but then they ended up chatting in private messages. And in these messages, they discussed their childhood, their work, their lives, and they both agreed to keep what they discussed private. In the midst of this, Hailey also expressed she responded to someone's comment on Instagram, it seems, and she said that she believed that SPV's criticisms were largely valid, although some were based on assumption rather than an accurate retelling of their lives. However, she did say that these situations were in the past now and that she and Ryan had grown since then, which I don't doubt to be true. And Ryan said the same. Ryan said, and it's true, that when you post something online, you are forever immortalized in that way because video doesn't change, but people do. Every time I watch a video of someone from even a month ago, I assume that, if I spoke to them about it today, some of their thoughts may have changed. And then Ryan closed off the statement that he made in his Instagram story by sharing that people seem to be preying on the downfall of his relationship with Hailey, which was really sad to hear. But Ryan reminded the audience that him and Hailey, they're human beings, you know, trying to figure life out. He said to not expect perfection from them because they're not perfect.
Please don't hold us to some standard of perfection because we're going to fail you every time. I know social media makes it feel like these, like very, I don't even know how to explain it. I know we don't feel like we should have to operate under the same rules as you, but we're human beings, we're imperfect, we're gonna fail, we're gonna make mistakes.
And I feel like people do really need to hear stuff like this. Like, in some ways, I feel like the way that we view influencers is similar to the way we view our parents when we're growing up. You know, like when we're children, it's like we don't realize that these people are not all-knowing creatures with perfect behavior and perfect opinions just because of the status they hold. That's just not reality, but our brains tell us it is. You know, when you're growing up, mum and dad know everything. But it's just not true. And so I've always thought that it's a ridiculously unfair standard to hold, you know, your average everyday person to. So sorry, mum. Because some people would say, you know, oh, but they're not your average everyday person. They're YouTubers. Yes, and they're still a person. You know, I don't know. But then awkward. Yeah, so this Instagram story that Ryan shared, it seemed like they were on the same page, him and SPV, and they had a good wee chat. Turns out that Ryan and SPV hadn't had the greatest of conversations. Well, they did it first, it seems, but then Ryan, first of all, he revealed information that SPV had shared in confidence with Ryan, like the fact that his wife was pregnant. He said SPV's age, he said the fact that SPV has a PhD, shared his real name, which, by the way, I'm only saying this stuff myself because SPV repeated these things in his video, Attention Ryan Trahan, but then Ryan apparently turned on SPV after seeing some weird, like, photoshopped images of Ryan's not-so-famous friends standing with famous people that SPV had made. And SPV wrote and said that Ryan had made rude comments about how these things totally changed his opinion of me and made a jab about how the retention rate must not be very good on my videos. And so he said basically he was definitely planning on painting me as a creep and I got ahead of him. And to be fair, listen, when people's images are on the internet, you can kind of do whatever you please with them if you want to do something as harmless as like photoshopping them into images with Oprah Winfrey. But on the other hand, I can imagine being unsettled or like a little disturbed in Ryan's shoes because SPV, he's not like this big YouTuber with a track record of making expose videos. SPV normally made these like almost weird, like abstract videos, but then they took the time to make a 2-hour-long video on Ryan and his wife Hailey, so I don't know. I can understand Ryan being like, this is strange. It's a very YouTuber specific conundrum, isn't it? And I think personally in this situation, both Ryan and SPV have points. And also at this point, like, I've been researching for so long and I was like, this stuff isn't important in my life at all. I don't really need to put more thought into it than that. So continuing with the timeline, you may have noticed if you're observant, I use the word wife rather than fiance when referring to Hailey Pham. And to be clear, I am not married to Hailey Pham, but by 2020, someone was. In February of 2021, it was uncovered by internet sleuths that Ryan and Hailey had actually gotten married silently and secretively in the throes of COVID back in 2020. And in their defense, once this news broke and everyone got really mad about them having a big event in COVID times and said like, oh, you hid it on purpose, Hailey cried that it was a private event and it was nobody's business what happened and when, which is true. But considering the amount of like wedding planning content that Hailey had made, I think more so what really happened is that they just, they wanted to get married so bad, they wanted to get it done and dusted, and they just didn't want to face the barrage of hate that they knew they'd receive for hosting a super spreader event during COVID, and so they went by the principle of what they don't know won't hurt them, and they just went ahead and did it behind closed doors. And they were right. Yeah, what they did didn't hurt their viewers, but it really hurt their careers. People were generally infuriated by anyone who dared to go out and have fun during COVID because we were all like cooped up inside. We were staring at our own faces in the mirror to trick ourselves into feeling like we had company, and then we saw these influencers out there like disregarding the rules, living it up large, spreading their germs everywhere. I mean, not the best, right? And this, I think, is the main thing that people think of when they think of Ryan and Hailey, because COVID drama was everyone drama. Like, everyone cared about this. That's what it felt like anyway. Of course, that's not true. Like I said, I'm going to start breezing through this stuff a bit faster now. We've got to get moving, but don't let that fool you. This was a massive drama. But I do just want to quickly draw attention to some points that Hailey and Ryan's friend Ryan Euro made that I think are pertinent. This was in response to the SPV video controversy, but I think it generally rings true for most points I've touched on in this video. And this is what he said.
The first thing I want to talk about, just because it involves me, so I just want to get that out of the way, is the fact that this dude quite literally impersonates me and pretends to be me. So many people, I got so many DMs, people asking if I was the one that made the documentary, because he made it seem and come across like I was the one that made a 2-hour documentary on two of my best friends. Why would I do that? The thing I want to talk about the documentary is people make mistakes, dude. Like, influencers and creators are put under this tiny little microscope, and people hyperanalyze every aspect of their life. Nobody actually knows what happens behind the scenes. I literally live with Haley and Ryan, and I can say them two are two of the most genuine people I have ever met in my life. They have done so much for myself, so much for their families, so much for their community. Okay? There's so much that you don't see behind the scenes. People make mistakes, dude. It's a part of life. It's how we grow, it's how we learn, it's how we move on. We would not be human beings if we did not make mistakes. Never get involved in drama or anything like that. I hate looking at it, I hate talking about it, I hate watching it, just because it's so toxic, it's so unhealthy. It's what I hate most about this whole internet culture. Like I said, people make mistakes, right? People should be held accountable for the mistakes that they make. They should learn and move on. That's what life is.
Haley also shared a statement that I think is pertinent to most of these situations in regards to the SPV drama. She wrote, "To those who think this is an attempt to discredit the guy and avoid responsibility, just about every single mistake 2 years ago or 2 months ago has been addressed. This deleted birth control podcast was addressed in the very next episode. If you're that focused on seeking out a mistake in a deleted video and not seeking out the response, that is on you. I can't do much further than learn from my mistakes and move on. How many times do I need to address one mistake before it's you who has to forgive and trust that I'm changing?" And honestly, I completely, I mean, just to insert my 2 cents here, I think the way we approach social media and influencers and celebrities, honestly, has a lot of evolving to do, because it's just not healthy. Like, I'm not saying that everything on planet Earth should be forgiven, but I am saying, like, someone crosses a line, right, and then they get absolutely ripped apart by the internet, by people on the internet that are screaming at them to apologize, and then they apologize, you know, they move on with their lives, they change. Maybe they don't come out and say in every single minute of their video or whatever, you know, I have changed since that moment, but they've changed, you know, they've learned, and yet we don't let go, right? People on the internet, we hold on to a misstep, even if it's been corrected. Like she said, that birth control podcast, it was deleted. She addressed the issue, but people ignored that in favor of continuing to be mad about her for what she said about birth. Like, I don't know. I don't want to go to war here, but I just, hold on, let me see if my camera battery is good to go now, because this is, we've gotten to the point. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. Where was I at? I was saying that, okay, so we can get so swept away in this idea that people need to be held accountable for their actions, to the point where, like, we will be unforgiving of someone who said that pineapple belongs on pizza 3 years ago. We'll be like, I cannot forgive and I cannot forget. But I just don't think it's a good mindset, because I can almost guarantee that if you look into your past, you can think of a time where you've done something wrong, or you've said something wrong. I can, but I can't think about it for too long, because otherwise I'll resort to, like, attempting to claw my brain out through my ears to make it stop. So I'm not gonna not gonna voice these things. But I can definitely feel like a, you know, a little chill run down my spine sometimes when I think about, you know, something I said or something that I did that just doesn't align with me because I was younger when I did it, or because I didn't know something when I did it. And if you can't think of a moment like that, then that's actually not a great thing. It either means that you're not being totally honest with yourself, or that you have the memory of a goldfish, which, like, same. Or it means that you haven't grown from that time in your life that you messed up, because the fact is that everybody messes up. And something that I find really, truly interesting is how much our brains love negative content and love to generally be negative, in part because it makes us feel like we're above the people that we're criticizing, right? Like we are better. We're on a pedestal and we're like spitting down on them. Queen of the castle, dirty rascals, you know? And sometimes this is true, right? There are some people that, you know, Ted Bundy, I'd say confidently that I'm probably a better wife. I hope I'm a better person than Ted Bundy. But in actuality, a lot of us may not be awfully dissimilar from someone that we see, you know, being discussed in a commentary video. A lot of the time, the only thing between us as like the consumers of commentary videos and the stars, the subjects of commentary videos, is a platform. It's the fact that we don't have a platform and these people do. As an example, you may remember that I mentioned that on the Call Me Candid podcast, Haley took a moment to speak about how she used to view her relationship with Ryan as more transactional. Like she'd keep track of how many times they were staring at each other's videos and stuff like that. And in that podcast, she acknowledged that that mindset was wrong. She said it was like she was playing an immature game in her head. Those are her own words. And she's come to realize that you know, what is for her is also for Ryan because they're partners in life. So that stuff doesn't matter. And that was actually quite heartwarming.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference, at least from my point of view, was I was just a lot more selfish thinking. Oh, I also used to be mean. Especially now, like, we would do a lot of video shoots for you, and I would always just be tallying in my mind hours spent for Ryan's channel versus for mine. And it was like this immature game in my head, whereas now it's just like, when you think about marriage, that's not how that works, you know? Like now, what I'm doing for you, it's also for me. So there's no tally, there's no different teams, we're just one.
And this is what somebody else wrote about that exact same moment that I'm speaking of. They said, in one of her podcast episodes, she mentioned that she is very mindful of how much time she dedicates to Ryan's videos, and she keeps a tab of how much he has helped her for her content. Extremely transactional and weird for a married couple. And in that comment, they absolutely twisted Hailey's words in the most confident way to the point where they probably believed what they were saying. And anyone who didn't know better would obviously just believe them because they said it like it was absolute point blank fact. But the internet is not real life, and oftentimes, as you can see, it's not even real. Like, not even slightly real. It's everyone's, like, people behave and think differently online than they do in real life. And I think that this sort of mindset that, you know, mistakes should haunt somebody forever, it's not something that you should be bringing into your reality from your time on the internet, but it's something that I feel like is encouraged to bring into your everyday life. I mean, like, I hope that when you make a mistake or you commit a faux pas, you can see that since that misstep, you have learned and you have changed. And even if, you know, just for the random person from the outside looking in, it may not be clear that you've changed, you know that time has passed and you have grown and you've changed. And I hope that you can forgive yourself for not being perfect. I hope that when you look in the mirror, you don't see your past, but rather you see your present. You see the person you are becoming. And I say this because, like I said, I think right now internet culture encourages us to do the opposite. It encourages us to wallow in mistakes. You know, the way people talk about it, you'd think that you're meant to like chew over your mistakes and never spit them out. And I just wanted to come here and say that you shouldn't be holding yourself to that standard, or you probably shouldn't be holding many people to that standard, if anyone. You know, it's so much healthier to let things go, learn from your missteps and move on and let other people do the same. And also, I feel like it's so easy to become jaded and assume the worst of yourself or the worst of other people because you or they have made mistakes in the past. Don't. Try not to. Let things grow. Let things change and evolve. I imagine a lot of these scenarios that we see commentary videos getting all like, commentary YouTubers get all up in arms about it, and, you know, gossip forums harp on and on about it. Kind of like a lot of the things that we've touched on in this video with Ryan and Hailey and their controversies. I imagine them to be like, you know, those memories that keep you up at night where you like, you put your head in the pillow and you're like, oh God, I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe I did that, and I just can't, like, I can't stop thinking about it. I just want to go to sleep. I kind of imagine it like that, except it's something that these people can't escape as easily. Like, we can try to turn our brains off and push it away, but theirs have been broadcast into the world, you know, like they can't just turn it off. And like I said, this whole sort of train of thought is actually what encouraged me to make this video, because Ryan and Hailey, despite their missteps and, you know, their troubled backgrounds and their unconventional lifestyles, they've actually managed to make really good careers for themselves. And they've also managed to spread positivity in the world in light of the controversies and the doubt that they endured. But that didn't come easily necessarily, right? Like they needed to be given second and third and fourth chances and so on. And that is so human. That's what I really wanted to touch on in this video, is the fact that it's okay. It's actually okay to make a mistake. You're not a terrible, awful person that needs to live up to this, like, redeeming yourself for this mistake that you've made forever. It's okay to make a mistake. It's totally human. Like, there are people in my life that have forgiven me so many times over, and I've done the same for them. Not that I keep a tally, but I just, like, life and relationships, neither of those things are black or white. There are so many shades of grey in between those colours. And life, I'd say, is just so much better when you step into that grey space. Because at least in my experience, I just feel so much more at peace when I accept that things are nuanced and people are nuanced. And, you know, sometimes things in life just don't make sense. Sometimes they don't really require my attention. Sometimes things don't matter. Sometimes they do. And that's for me to decide. I guess what I really want to say is that everyone paints the world with their own brush, right? It's a very harsh example, but one that I hope connects with someone watching this video in a way that other videos have connected with me in the past. My father was abusive and he committed suicide before he could be held accountable in a court of law. And that left me with very conflicting feelings. And I owe a lot of my healing to being able to accept that multiple things can be true at once. I could grieve the loss of my father, who did show care for me and who I did share happy moments with, and I did have fond memories of. And I could also feel relief that, you know, my abuser couldn't hurt me and couldn't hurt anyone else anymore. And I genuinely, I think that if I was determined to see my father as nothing more than a monster, as, you know, many people from the outside do, and fairly so when they hear about what he did, then I don't think I ever could have accepted all of the feelings that I was feeling. And I don't think that I could have moved through the hurt and the anger and like all of the other multitude of emotions that I had to process as easily as I did. It wasn't easy, but I think the thing is, like, if you haven't been in the situation firsthand and you don't know the story in its entirety, then obviously you don't see things the same way that you would if you'd walked through every step of that situation yourself. And I think that's part of the reason that online people can be so black or white. I mean, like, if you picked up the book Bambi and you read no further than the sentence, Bambi looked around, his mother was no longer there, then you might think that Bambi is a sci-fi about a mother with teleportation powers. And you might tell all your friends that ask that Bambi is a sci-fi about a child with a transient disappearing mother, because that's your only perception of the events in the book. You know what I feel like I've got on a tangent, but I'm just hoping to extend the reminder that life is many things, but it is not black or white. And also, the internet is not real life. A lot of the things that we care about on here are truly not that deep. And I don't mean to discount everything that happens online by any means. I don't mean to discount anyone's feelings, obviously. And some people don't share the same mindset as me. If you don't like someone and you live your life just fine thinking that they're a monster, that's fine. That's genuinely fine. But I just wanted to include this because, I mean, there's an off chance that somebody might need to hear it. So hopefully that doesn't bite me in the ass in the way that it did when Hailey shared all those things that she shared, just in case somebody needed to hear it. But as I mentioned, moving past these controversies and back on the topic of Hailey and Ryan, they kind of just fell off the drama radar, and they did so by nixing the appearance of their personal lives in their content, which was a very, very smart move, and was actually the second reason I wanted to make this video, because I wanted to say that if you enjoy content creation and you'd like to share what you make online, I would strongly encourage you to find a focus that isn't centered around your genuine personal life and your personal thoughts and your personal relationship or relationships. I think, like, if you're just a little bit calculated about what you share, at the very least, you're going to have a much cruisier experience online. As Ryan himself said when he was making commentary videos, he felt very susceptible to hate comments, partially because his thoughts and his identity were too tied up in his content. And also because, like, kind of like we talked about with the negativity thing, when you criticize people, you put yourself above them. And so people were seeing him putting himself above other people, and they were thinking, well, you're not really that great either, I'm above you. And so now, you know, the content he makes is more idea focused, and he plays a character that is very much true to himself, but is also the best that he feels he can offer. You know what I mean? Like, he's appearing as a version of himself in his content. He's not just being him entirely, and that's very smart. And all of this began in the eyes of the mainstream viewer with Ryan's Penny series in 2022. Overall, this series achieved hundreds of millions of views. It was huge. It raised over $1 million for Feeding America, which is absolutely amazing and so incredible. And the success of this series was no mistake. Ryan has clearly mastered the arts of storytelling and editing and capturing emotion and portraying himself in a way that made it near on impossible for viewers to leave his videos feeling anything other than fulfilled or inspired. And so of course they wanted to come back and watch another one. The videos, they kind of felt like those, if you remember those Faith and Humanity compilations where it'd be like people saving each other, or like people hugging on the street or whatever. It felt like that. And since the release of his Penny series, Ryan has honestly been unfloppable. He has found it unable to be flopped. He just keeps releasing these high quality videos. He's clearly still shooting for the stars in the way that he did years ago. He has this unflappable passion for his craft, and it's amazing. And meanwhile, Hailey has found herself and her place in BookTube, which many viewers commented back when she started that it would be nothing more than a phase. Just another phase when she started making this content years ago. But now her main channel, or vlog channel, it's been a couple years and they're still flooded with content about books. And Hailey's choice to focus on this one particular niche absolutely revived her channel. It was not doing well with like her personal content, especially after all the dramas. She's doing just fine now. It's great because she can still showcase the facets of her personality that her audience have, you know, historically enjoyed, while focusing on a passion, a shared passion. And Hailey's passion for reading has even spread from her eyeballs to her fingers, and she is now writing a book. So stay tuned. I think it's like a romance novel or something, if that's something you're into. Hailey hasn't entirely stopped featuring her personal life in any of her content, though. Her book content kind of coexists with her In My 20s diaries. And she also has her What I Do When Ryan Films His Blank videos, a series, I guess, which have also done numbers. They do really well. And these videos, honestly, they're great. They feature a much calmer and more stable version of Hailey, who is now in her early 20s. And it just shows her like spending time with friends and indulging in things that she enjoys, and generally blowing through life. Like, she's figuring it out. Although, like, you could argue that nobody needs to buy as many books as she does and so on. And I mean, with Ryan, some people have said they don't know, they don't like him, they think it's all fake content, whatever. I think almost everything can be problematic if you dig deep enough, and I'm putting the shovel down. I just want to have a nice moment. I'm not going to dig into all that, and I don't think it's important. Not right now, anyway. But as for Ryan and Hailey as a couple, they've moved a few times since buying their first house. They appear in each other's content still, but much less than they have done in the past. I've seen people comment that they think it's weird that Hailey doesn't travel with Ryan when he makes his videos because all she does is sit around and read anyway. But at this point, I'm like, people will snark on anyone, especially women. This is just what I've noticed, but people will snark on women for literally anything. I keep coming across these snark pages for like the most random people that I've never seen in my life before, and they've got these dedicated, I can't even call them followers or fans because they're not. They're just like obsessively like prying into every piece of content they share, every little facet of their lives. I'm like, I don't know, it makes more sense. Fan pages make more sense because I'm like, well, you enjoy this person and what they produce and stuff, so it makes sense that you'd want to take time out of your day to be like, oh, look at what they're doing here. But like, if you don't like, so I don't know. I scroll through some of those subreddits or forums sometimes, and I'm like, are you guys okay? Are you sad or are you alright? Some people have a tendency to see the worst in every situation, I think. But for me, what I'm seeing when I see Ryan and Hailey now, I'm seeing a couple that are healthily independent. You know, they have their own things going on. They don't feel compelled to join their partner on every single work trip they ever go on, but that doesn't mean that they aren't still in love with each other. Like, Ryan has shown interest in Hailey's hobby of reading, despite not being super into it himself, and Hailey has tagged along some of Ryan's videos. I don't see why they'd need to show us anything else or do anything differently. Really, I think they're doing just fine. On the subject of like snark and stuff like that, some people say that Ryan and Hailey act more like acquaintances than husband and wife, but I think they act like a perfectly typical couple. I think maybe we're too used to seeing people all over each other in content, or, you know, we think the movie relationships, the real relationships. The fact is that every relationship is different, obviously, but marriage isn't necessarily magical and romantic all the time. And I think it's great that Ryan and Hailey are friends as well as partners. I think that's ideal. I mean, they've been married for what, 5 years now? So I'm sure Ryan doesn't like dip Hailey into a deep, passionate kiss every time he walks past her in the hallway of their house, but like, he doesn't have to. You know, people don't have to express their love for their partners in these grand romantic gestures, or even they don't have to express it publicly at all for the love to be real. And I mean, like, Hailey recently was in Ryan's I stayed at every hotel at Disney World video, and it looked like they had a great time. Notice that I am saying looked though, it looked, because we have no real true insight into their lives, so it doesn't really matter what we think. These are all just my personal observations, but what I see is that I don't know, I think that now Ryan and Hailey have managed to carve out careers for themselves that don't involve constantly justifying their thoughts and their actions, which is great. Ryan has started a successful lolly or candy company called Joyride, and I hope that he's thriving in his personal and professional life, but I don't know, it looks like he is, so that's great. And Hailey seems to be at peace with herself a lot more. She's really settled into her aesthetic and her hobby of reading, which, if you refer to some of her early Instagram posts, reading has been something that she's been interested in for a very long time, so very true to herself. And importantly, Ryan and Hailey both seem to be happy and healthy, and that's all that really matters as far as I'm concerned. To close things off, I want to share a favorite song of mine with you. It's one of like 400 songs on my best songs ever playlist, and no, I cannot narrow it down. It's by Robbie Williams, and it's called Candy. And I didn't really understand the lyrics when I first listened to it. Like, he sings about moving bricks to Brixton at one point, and I was like, okay, bricklayer. But it turns out bricks are a reference to drugs, so oops. But anyway, I love the song as soon as I first heard it because it feels so fun and so true to myself to scream the line, if it don't feel good, what are you doing it for? Obviously, you can't live your life by that in its entirety, but I think for the most part, it's a great way to, it's benefited me to make decisions that way. I'm like, if I'm not enjoying my life right now, then what decision can I make in order to enjoy it a little bit more? How do I make this feel good? And I just thought of this throughout the whole story, but especially when Ryan said that spreading negativity about other people's creations rather than making creations himself didn't feel good for him, and so he changed what he was doing to better align with himself. And you know, I feel like we can benefit from keeping in mind, just to some degree, that when we feel like we're existing in this state of despair, you know, like we're not doing well, there's often something, even just one small thing, that we could muster the energy to do that would ever so slightly change the trajectory of our lives to head in a slightly better direction. And whether that's like shifting your mindset a little bit, smiling at strangers on the street to gaslight yourself into being happy, I partake in this, or even like pulling up the corners of the blankets on your unmade bed to make it look a little tidier without exerting the actual effort that it takes to make the bed, because sometimes that's not something you want to do, then, you know, do that, give it a try. If you think something might feel good, give it a whirl. And in the end, the reason I spoke about all of this for the past 3 hours is to say that as much as Ryan and Hayley's careers have been marked with controversy and negativity, there are also positive lessons dotted throughout their stories. It's all very human. There's lessons in love and growing up and finding religion and finding yourself and working hard and living in a way that's true to you. And similarly to everything else, their stories are not black and white, and there's no reason they should be. Their stories are grey, and there is beauty in the grey. Humans are interesting because they're different. We're interesting because we don't do everything perfectly. If we accept that these things in life are true, that things aren't always perfect, and that's just part of the ride, then we're gonna have a much better time on the ride. I mean, like a roller coaster, it can feel a little clunky sometimes. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I should really be riding this. This might kill me. But unless you're literally flying off the rails, it's probably fine. You know, I don't know if that made any sense, but I might include it. I don't really think as I'm speaking. I just words just kind of come out of my mouth. Anyway, I'm so glad that we've reached the end of this script. Not because I didn't enjoy sitting here yapping to you, but because I literally wrote this entire thing with the conclusion in mind that I had to get through all of it. I feel insane, but I am so grateful for your time today, and I hope that you haven't left this video feeling insane. How long have I been talking about this? All right. Okay, I guess I'll get you to the end. I'm so excited. I truly hope that you are doing well and that you are taking care of yourself, and I really appreciate you being here today, and I hope you have a lovely day. Why am I getting all shy now? Like I'm not on a script anymore. All right, I'm gonna go now. Thank you for being here. I will see you again, maybe. Bye. Okay, bye. Bye.